Chapter 578. Li Zixuan's act of using the fairy lamp to carry a person into the sky could be considered as another wave of advertising for Yanhuang College and Engineering. Furthermore, the effect of the advertising was several times better than the last time. The most direct manifestation of this was that the first volume of the new mathematics textbook sold out like crazy in Chitsu culture. 100 books were sold out in an instant, 200 books were sold out in an instant, and 500 books were sold out in an instant. In order to alleviate the pressure of Chitsu culture's traffic, Li Zixuan decisively decided to distribute the tens of thousands of new mathematics textbooks to the major booksellers in Chang'an City at a price of 15% below the market price. In any case, he had never thought of using these textbooks to make money. It was fine as long as he didn't make a loss. Compared to making money, spreading the new mathematics textbook was obviously more important. In addition to the booming sales of mathematics textbooks, the number of applicants for Yanhuang College's entrance exam next month had also increased sharply. According to Ma Zhou's statistics, by noon today, the number of students who had signed up had increased from 100 yesterday to 800. Although there were millions of residents in Chang'an City, how high could the percentage of people who were educated be expected to be, given the educational conditions of this era? Not even 1%. This was also one of the reasons why scholars in ancient times were always given preferential treatment. Today's Datang Daily's headlines were written by Ma Zhou himself. Ma Zhou did a comprehensive report on the fairy lamp carrying a person into the sky last night, and enthusiastically praised the wonders of engineering. It was believed that with the Wang family's sales of today's newspaper to the various counties of Tang Dynasty, Li Zixuan's name would be known all over the world. Yanhuang College and Engineering would also be planted in the hearts of the people. With time, this flame would eventually become a prairie fire that would burn the entire Tang Dynasty. In the afternoon, Li Zixuan stayed at home to write teaching materials. Regarding the future plans of the Yanhuang Academy, he more or less had an idea. First of all, he had divided the entire academy into a middle school department and a university department, with each department having 3 years of study. If one were to look at it from the perspective of the modern education system, this arrangement of schooling was extremely unreasonable. In modern times, it would take at least 16 years to go from primary school to university. However, this was the ancient times, and young people usually had to start a family at the age of 14 or 15. If one were to blindly apply the modern education system, there would be very few people who could complete 16 years of schooling. Besides, Li Zixuan didn't plan to transfer all the things that were taught in modern education to Yanhuang College. For example, he didn't plan to include Chinese, English, ideological and moral character, art, music, politics, history, biology. If these were taught in ancient times, there would definitely be a big problem. And so on, which were more literary subjects. He didn't plan to include them in the curriculum of Yanhuang College in the future. In this way, the courses that the students of Yanhuang College had to learn would be less than half of what the modern students had to learn. Under a reasonable teaching arrangement, there was still hope to complete the popularization of the basic knowledge of mathematics, physics, and chemistry in the first 3 years. In the second 3 years, it would complete the cultivation of the students who were interested in further study in the fields of engineering, construction, precision machinery, sound, light, heat, and so on, which would open the door to a new world for them. As for whether they wanted to continue to study in depth in the future, they would have to rely on their own efforts. Li Zixuan only wanted to be a guide, not a knowledge repeater. This was because no one knew what kind of strange ideas the ancient people would have after they had the basic scientific knowledge of modern people. Perhaps even Li Zixuan, the guide, would be shocked. "Young master." Someone from the palace came. "The master wants you to go out and greet them." Li Zixuan, who was writing the second volume of mathematics teaching materials, was suddenly interrupted by Xiaoxi's voice. "Okay. I'll go now." Li Zixuan raised his head and looked at Xiaoxi, who was blushing, then got up and went out of the room. But in his heart he thought, "Ever since I took her for a walk in the sky last night, the way she looks at me seems to have become weird. She's also easily shy, could it be?" Thinking of this, Li Zixuan stroked his chin in a smug manner, looking very pleased with himself. When he came to the front yard, he found out that Li Zixuan had sent someone to summon him. Li Zixuan quickly changed his clothes and went to the palace with the servant. After entering the palace so many times, Li Zixuan was not as nervous as before. However, he could not help but wonder if old Li was looking for trouble with him because of what happened last night. If that was the case, then he was really petty. Last night, he only took a few glances at the palace from afar. When he came to the Sweet Dew Palace, Li Er was sitting at the top reading a book. Li Zixuan bowed, but Li Er pretended not to see it. It was as if there were 10,000 beauties in the book that attracted his eyes, making him unwilling to look at Li Zixuan. Seeing this situation, Li Zixuan was even more certain that Li Er called him over because of what happened last night. He wanted to show off his power in front of him. He secretly curled his lips but did not show it on his face. He started to play the role of an obedient child. He stood below and did not say a word. "Oh, you're here." After about a quarter of an hour, Li Er seemed to have just noticed Li Zixuan's arrival. He put down his book and said lightly. Li Zixuan scolded old Li for being pretentious in his heart. "However," he said, "your humble servant greets your majesty. I wonder what your majesty has summoned this humble servant here for." Every word and action of this fellow was methodical. He was like an old fox who had been in the imperial court for decades. No one could find fault with him. Li Er's mouth twitched slightly. He did not answer but asked, "What have you been busy with recently? As the Crown Prince Zhan Shi, I haven't seen you do anything in the East Palace. If it wasn't for me protecting you, you would have been impeached and sent to prison." Li Zixuan's face was full of black lines. When others wanted to find fault with you, how could they find fault with you? However, after being promoted for so long, he only knew that the Crown Prince Zhan Shi's rank was very high. He was a primary third rank. However, he had no idea what the Crown Prince Zhan Shi was doing. "Why did you ask him to go to the East Palace?" Cough cough. "Your Majesty, this humble servant has been busy with the construction of the academy, the hiring of teachers, and the compilation of teaching materials. I really have no time to work in the East Palace. This humble servant is suspected of dereliction of duty. Your Majesty, please punish me." "Why don't this humble servant resign from the position of Crown Prince Zhan Shi, and appoint another worthy person?" After thinking for a moment, Li Zixuan took a step back in order to advance. He pretended to be in a bad mood and blamed himself. Li Er glared at him and said angrily, "Bastard! Do you think you can resign from the official position that I gave you? It's understandable that you are busy with the academy. After all, you have put a lot of effort into it. However, after this matter is over, you have to take care of your duties in the East Palace. Do you hear me?" Chapter 579. The Crown Prince Zhan Shi was mainly in charge of the Eastern Palace's internal affairs and cultural education. When Li Zixuan was first appointed to this position, Li Er had not expected him to be able to fulfill his duties. This was because Li Chengqian's education was being handled by the Crown Prince's right concubine-born son Kong Yingda, and his left concubine-born son Yu Jining. Li Zixuan's title as Crown Prince Zhan Shi was more in name than reality. Li Er mainly wanted him to assist Li Chengqian in the future. At this time, Li Er still had high hopes for his son Li Chengqian. "This subject thanks your majesty for your grace." Li Zixuan was happy. This test had indeed tested Li Er's attitude. It seemed like Li Er did not want to remove him from his position. But logically speaking, Li Zixuan had no intention of resigning. Although he wasn't a fan of official positions, he needed to have an official position to protect himself in this cannibalistic feudal society. The higher the rank, the better. This third-rank Crown Prince Zhan Shi was just right. Li Er looked at Li Zixuan, who wanted to be proud but did not dare to be too proud. He was both angry and amused. He pondered for a while and said, "The Supreme Court had already found out some information from the scholar who led the attack on your house." When Li Zixuan heard this, he immediately perked up. However, Li Er suddenly stopped talking. This made him very angry. He cursed old Li in his heart for not having little Chirpy. After waiting for a long while, Li Er continued. "That student is from Qinghe's Chui family's Zhengzhou branch's second branch. His name is Chui Yunhan. His grandfather is the East County Duke's younger brother. According to him, because he saw you wantonly advocating engineering studies, he felt that you were insulting the sage's studies. He felt indignant and wanted to gather a group of classmates to denounce you." Qinghe's Chui family? When Li Zixuan heard Chui Yunhan's identity, he was shocked in his heart. Combined with the news of the aristocratic family gathering that Lang Yu Yao brought the day before, he finally had a rough idea of what happened. The aristocratic family had already made a move on him. But after hearing Chui Yunhan's confession, Li Zixuan could not help but frown. He stepped forward and cupped his hands. "Your Majesty, Please forgive me for speaking bluntly. The truth is definitely not what Cui Yunhan said. All of my actions after leaving the mountain have harmed the aristocratic families and benefited the common people. Those aristocratic families all see me as a thorn in their side. If you say that Cui Yunhan's actions are only to protect the position of the Saint Academy, I will never believe it. Li Er said in annoyance. Of course I know that kid is lying. Do I need you to teach me? However, as Cui Junchuo was the prefectural duke, the people of the Supreme Court could not punish his grandnephew without any evidence. However, the Supreme Court didn't come out empty-handed. They also found some other things. Li Zishuan's expression changed slightly, but he couldn't rush him. He could only stand there anxiously and wait for him to continue. The incident this time was less than a month apart from the time when Jiang Tsuehua led a group of women to surround your house. Previously, I suspected that there should be some connection between the two cases. Thus, I let the Supreme Court officials try the two cases together. As expected, Jiang Tsuehua testified that Cui Yunhan's figure and voice were very similar to the person who instigated her last time. Thus, Cui Yunhan has been detained by the Supreme Court and will be handed over to the Ministry of Justice to be convicted. After Li Er finished speaking, there was a trace of complacency in his expression. Li Zishuan felt that he should play the background music of Detective Conan for old Li. However, he felt that the previous case had nothing to do with this case. Because the day before yesterday, Lang Yuyao brought news that during the gathering of the 5 aristocratic families, the one who went to the Cui family was Cui Xuanjij. Your Majesty is wise and observant. I admire you. But I wonder how your Majesty intends to deal with it? Li Zishuan thought to himself. No matter if the previous incident was done by Cui Yunhan or not, this kid will definitely not be able to escape. I will kill him first. Li Er stared into Li Zishuan's eyes and asked, how do you want me to deal with him? A qualified and virtuous official would definitely say, Your Majesty can decide, at this moment. However, Li Zishuan was never a qualified and virtuous official. He said with a serious face, Your Majesty, to be honest, ever since I decided to establish Yanhuang College and promote engineering, I have been running around everywhere for the college. Even so, the progress of the college is not satisfactory. The main reason is that in the process of building the college, there are always some people with bad intentions who want to harm me. In order to protect myself and my family, I am really tired of dealing with them. Therefore, if Your Majesty feels that there is still a need for Yanhuang College to exist, or if Your Majesty feels that engineering is still useful to my Tang Empire, I beg Your Majesty to punish the chicken to warn the monkey, so that those demons and monsters will not affect me from spreading engineering. After saying so much, Li Zishuan wanted to use the name of engineering to make Cui Yunhan look bad in front of Li Er. With the fairy lamp and gunpowder, these two peerless artifacts, Li Zishuan felt that the bargaining chip on the side of engineering was enough. Furthermore, Li Er's relationship with the Shandong nobles was not good. This choice was not controversial for Li Er. Of course, Li Er would not choose to stand on the side of the nobles. Otherwise, he would not have personally ordered the imperial army to capture Cui Yunhan. The reason why he did that was because he placed great importance on engineering. At this moment, after hearing Li Zishuan's words, he raised his eyebrows and said, You want me to kill Cui Yunhan? Tisk. You really dare to think about it? Let's not talk about Cui Yunhan being from the Cui clan of Qinghe. Just based on the crimes he committed, according to my Tang Empire law, he does not deserve to die. Do you want me to kill him just because he targeted you? If I really do that, how can I convince the masses? Li Zishuan felt helpless. He thought for a while and said, I was too reckless. However, Your Majesty, last time, the elder of 7 cultivators sect, Snake King, came down the mountain to kill me to avenge his disciple. According to my investigation, Snake King had been in seclusion in Snake Spirit Mountain for many years and rarely came down the mountain. A few months ago, I killed Flying Snake at Baimang Mountain's Bloodwind stronghold. There were very few people who knew about this matter. Snake King must have found out from some channels that I killed his disciple and came down the mountain to ambush me. I suspect that this matter is related to the nobles, or rather, the Cui clan. Your Majesty, please make a decision for me. Hearing this, a cold light flashed in Li Er's eyes. He stood with his hands behind his back and paced back and forth in the hall. After a while he said, Your suspicion is reasonable, but there is no proof. I will not let Cui Yunhan off easily. I will also send someone to warn the Chui clans. This matter ends here. If they still dare to do anything, I will definitely punish them. You can go back first. In the end, now is not the time to touch the Chui clan. Li Er sighed in his heart. Chapter 580. Feiji. Do you have any brothers who are good at gathering information? After returning home from the palace, Li Zixuan called Pang Feiji into the house and asked. Pang Feiji was confused and replied, Yes, I do. I have 2 men who are especially good at gathering information. Do you have any orders for me, Lord Ju? Li Zixuan nodded in satisfaction and said, Very good. Send them to investigate all the dirty things the Chui family has done in recent years. The more, the better. It's best if you can find evidence. Li Er had some misgivings about the aristocratic families and was unwilling to make a move against the Chui family. However, Li Zixuan wasn't willing to let them off just like that. Even if he couldn't get rid of this towering tree, he could at least make its roots fester a bit. Li Zixuan had never shown any mercy to those who had harmed him before, just like the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect. Pang Feiji was stunned and asked subconsciously, Which Chui family is it, Lord Ju? The Chui family from Qinghe. Boom! Pang Feiji felt his brain explode. The Chui family was a top aristocratic family that had lasted for thousands of years. In people's hearts, their status was even higher than that of the Li family. Now, Li Zixuan wanted him to investigate the Chui family. How could he not be shocked? After being stunned for a moment, Pang Feiji muttered, Lord Ju, did I hear wrongly? You want to investigate the Chui family from Qinghe? Li Zixuan nodded and said, That's right. Is there a problem? Seeing Pang Feiji's unusually shocked expression, Li Zixuan went forward and patted his shoulder. He continued, Feiji, you have to understand who has the final say in the world now. It's the Emperor. The aristocratic families are just arrows at the end of their flight. Don't be afraid of them anymore. Pang Feiji swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva and said, I understand. Don't worry, Lord Ju. I will find a way to get this done. Go. Li Zixuan didn't believe that any of these rich and powerful families had a clean bottom. As long as Pang Feiji investigated seriously, he would definitely be able to find some dirty deeds done by the Chui family's disciples. East Duke's Mansion. Uncle. Oh no. Yunhan has been sent to Cheongzhou. In the afternoon, Chui Yunhan's father, Chui Simo, hurried to the backyard of the East County Duke's mansion. When he saw Chui Junchuo, who was enjoying the cool air under the corridor, he shouted anxiously. The Tang dynasty established Chang'an as the capital. The development of the north was relatively good, while the development of the south was relatively poor. At this time, the main places of exile for prisoners were Hainan and Guangxi in the south. These places were rich in resources, inconvenient in transportation, and unsuitable for human habitation. The prisoners' lives were used to do dangerous work to speed up the local development. Chui Junchuo was shocked. He stood up shakily and said in disbelief, How is that possible? The Supreme Judiciary just arrested Yun Han the day before yesterday. Even if they have evidence, they have to hand it over to the Ministry of Justice to convict him. How can it be so fast? Chui Simo said with a sad face. It's true, uncle. I asked a few friends from the Supreme Judiciary to take care of Yun Han. According to them, the Supreme Judiciary held a joint trial yesterday for Yun Han and Jiang Cuihua, who instigated the women to cause trouble in Li Zixuan's house. Jiang Cuihua, that be *TCH, slandered my son Yun Han and the mastermind behind the scenes who bribed her previously. Their voices and figures are exactly the same. Therefore, the Supreme Judiciary officially arrested Yun Han yesterday and prepared to hand him over to the Ministry of Justice to convict him. However, just now, I received news from the Supreme Judiciary that the Emperor has decreed that Yun Han will be sent to Cheongzhou and will not be able to enter the imperial court as an official for the rest of his life. Uncle, you have to save Yun Han. He has been wronged. The previous incident had nothing to do with him. When Chui Junchuo heard this, he was both shocked and stunned at the same time. He never thought that the crime of Chui Xuanji bribing Jiang Cuihua to wreak havoc in the Li residence would ultimately fall onto Chui Yunhan. He closed his eyes and seriously thought about it. If he didn't think about it, he wouldn't know. But when he thought about it, he was shocked. He compared Chui Xuanji and Chui Yunhan's voices and figures in his memory, and realized that they were 80% similar. No wonder Jiang Cuihua would identify Cui Yunhan as the mastermind. Now that things had come to this, it was already out of Cui Junchuo's control. Now that there were witnesses and evidence, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to reverse the case for Cui Yunhan, unless he told the imperial court that the mastermind behind the chaos in the Li residence was Cui Xuanji. However, was it worth it? That way, although it would reduce Cui Yunhan's crime, it would also cause another descendant of the Cui family to be implicated. Furthermore, it would be the most outstanding youngster of the third generation. Cui Junchuo would never allow such a situation to happen. Cui CMO did not know about the previous incident. Otherwise, it would be hard to say if he would betray Cui Xuanji in order to save his son. For the Cui family, he could only. A trace of determination flashed across Cui Junchuo's eyes. He looked at Cui CMO and said in a deep voice, "I had already arranged a meeting with 2 assistant ministers of the Ministry of Justice tomorrow to ask them to make an exception. However, I did not expect the emperor to place such importance on this case and convict Yunhan in such a short time. Now that the emperor has issued the imperial edict and the evidence is irrefutable, no matter how hard I try, it will be in vain. So, CMO, you had better make plans early and arrange for some people to go to Cheongzhou to take care of Yunhan." Cui CMO was stunned on the spot as if he was struck by lightning. After a while, he said in a trembling voice, "No, uncle. Yunhan is also your nephew. She couldn't ruin his future because of such a small matter. Please help him. Don't you know Minister Li? Ask him to plead for leniency for Yunhan." Patriarch, the imperial edict is here. The eunuch who delivers the imperial edict is waiting outside. At this moment, a servant ran in a panic and reported with a bow. Cui Junchuo's expression changed abruptly. Then he said to Cui Simo, "Take care of yourself. The Cui family is no longer the same as before. If you don't wake up now, sooner or later, you will follow in Yunhan's footsteps." After saying that, he snorted and left in a huff. When Cui CMO heard that, he knew that this matter had really reached the point of no return. When he thought that his only son was going to be exiled to a barren land thousands of miles away, even though he was a man in his 40s, he could not help but feel sad and his eyes turned red. "Yunhan, my son, I have let you down. Uncle, you are so cruel." The person Cui CMO was complaining about in his heart had already arrived at the front yard. When he saw the eunuch who came to deliver the imperial edict, his pupils suddenly shrank. His already stooped back bent even lower. If one looked carefully, one could see that his body was still trembling slightly. Chapter 581. Steward Zhao, why have you come personally? East County Duke's Mansion. The person who came to deliver the imperial edict was Zhao Song. Although this person did not have any rank, he was the person closest to the center of power of the Tang Empire. No one dared to ignore him. Furthermore, Cui Junchuo had just heard the news of Cui Yunhan being exiled to Cheongzhou, and Zhao Song, the head eunuch, came with the imperial edict. Even a fool would know that the Cui family was in big trouble. Hee, I'm here to see the grand courtyard of the East County Duke's mansion. I wonder if the East County Duke has been well recently? Zhao Song's face was full of smiles, but his smile did not make people happy. Perhaps this was the so-called, "there is a knife hidden in a smile." When Cui Junchuo heard Zhao Song's words, his expression froze completely. After a long silence he said, "Thank you for your concern, Steward Zhao. I'm well." As soon as he finished speaking, Zhao Song sighed and said, "But His Majesty has not been well recently. There are always some people who don't want to live a peaceful life and insist on doing shameful things in the dark. These people think that they are doing it secretly and no one will find out. But they don't know that if they don't want anyone to know, they shouldn't do it in the first place. His Majesty is watching." After saying that, Zhao Song stared at Cui Junchuo meaningfully without blinking. The atmosphere in the room suddenly froze. The panic in Cui Junchuo's eyes disappeared in a flash. Then he stepped forward and clasped his hands. This kind of person is really hateful. His Majesty is diligent and loves the people. He has a lot of things to deal with every day, but he still has to worry about this kind of person. I am greatly indebted to His Majesty, but I can't share His Majesty's burdens and find out those evil people in the dark. I am ashamed to face His Majesty. As he spoke, Cui Junchuo's tears flowed down. Looking at him, anyone would think that he was a rare loyal minister. Zhao Song's expression did not change, as if he did not hear Cui Junchuo's words at all. Cui Junchuo expressed his feelings for a long time, but he did not receive any response from Zhao Song. If he knew that a clown was a creature, he would definitely feel that he was a clown now. Cough, cough. The atmosphere was awkward for a while, and Cui Junchuo finally couldn't help but get to the point. I wonder why Steward Zhao is here today? Zhao Song's expression turned solemn. He stepped forward and said, His Majesty ordered me to come. His Majesty wants me to say a few words to you. Cui Junchuo hurriedly said, Then this old man will order people to set up the incense table to welcome the imperial edict. Zhao Song said, There's no need. I'm just here to pass on a few verbal instructions from His Majesty. I don't have an imperial edict with me. East Commandery Duke. Just listen to me. Cui Junchuo's heart was beating very fast. He quickly cupped his hands and said, Chief, please speak. This old man is all ears. Zhao Song smiled and said, I've just finished what His Majesty wanted to say to the prefectural duke. I have to return to the palace now. Take care. After saying that, he didn't care whether Cui Junchuo reacted or not and directly left. Are you done? That's it? He just said that if you don't want others to know, don't do it in the first place. Could it be that His Majesty already knows about the Snake Spirit Mountain? Cui Junchuo stared at Zhao Song's back as he left and muttered. His face had never been so pale, and he seemed to have aged a lot. Cui Yunhan has been exiled to Chongzhou? In the evening, at the Li residence, Li Zishuan widened his eyes and looked at Brother Ji in front of him as he asked in shock. He still had some basic knowledge of history. He knew that the Chongzhou of this era was completely different from the Chongzhou of his previous life. With the current level of transportation, it would be good if Cui Yunhan could reach Chongzhou alive. Even if he was still alive, the rest of his life would be wasted. Logically speaking, being exiled to that place was no different from being beheaded. Pang Feiji nodded excitedly and said, Lord Zhu, this is absolutely true. Jiang Cuihua has also been exiled to Chongzhou. With these two as examples, I'll see who dares to cause trouble in the residence in the future. Not bad, not bad. Li Zishuan stood up with satisfaction and paced around the room. He didn't expect Li Er to be so ruthless and not give the Cui family any face. It seemed that what he said in front of Li Er in the afternoon had taken effect. Heh, looks like old Li still cares a lot about his work. This way, I can save a lot of trouble in the future. Li Zishuan thought proudly in his heart. Unlike the other emperors in the future, Li Er had a strong personality and was very opinionated. Once he made up his mind to protect someone, as long as that person didn't look for trouble, they would usually be safe. Lord Zhu, then should we continue investigating the Cui family? Pang Feiji asked tentatively. After following Li Zishuan for so long, Chicken Bro understood Li Zishuan very well. He guessed that when Li Zishuan asked him to investigate the Cui family, it was mainly because of the results given by Li Er. Li Zishuan might not be satisfied, but looking at Li Zishuan now, it was obvious that he was satisfied with the results given by Li Er. That was why he asked this question. Li Zishuan muttered, Let's investigate. Let's not talk about other things first. I'm also very curious if the Cui family has done any dirty things in recent years. Although Cui Yunhan was crippled, Li Zishuan wasn't completely relieved. After all, the Cui family was a millennium-old family. Who knew if the other party would play any tricks again? He had to prepare the black material first so that he could be prepared when he needed to use it in the future. Yes, Lord Zhu. Pang Feiji scratched his head. Although he didn't understand what Li Zishuan was thinking, he still obeyed the order and agreed. Hey, did you hear? Cui Yunhan has been exiled to Chongzhou. In front of the Hongwen Library, a group of students who had just finished school were walking in groups of 3 to 5. One of the students suddenly said, How is that possible? Cui Yunhan had only been in the Supreme Court for less than 3 days. How could he be convicted so quickly? Yeah. Dongfang Rua, where did you get this unreliable news? It's true. My father is the head of the Supreme Court. How can the news I got be fake? I heard that Her Majesty personally issued an imperial edict to exile Cui Yunhan to Chongzhou. He can't be an official for the rest of his life. And Jiang Cuihua, who started the trouble at Li Xiannan's house, was also exiled to Chongzhou. Her Majesty is. Looks like I can't say bad things about Gongxue in the future. Her Majesty is obviously supporting Li Xiannan. TSK. Luckily, I didn't cause trouble that day. Otherwise, wouldn't I have to live in fear every day? The punishment that Li Er gave Cui Yunhan could not be said to be light. To a scholar, their greatest wish was to obtain scholarly honors and enter the imperial court. And now, with Cui Yunhan as an example, all of them could not help but feel fear in their hearts. From this aspect, the goal of punishing the chicken to warn the monkey had been completely achieved. Chapter 582. How was it? What was Cui Junchuo's reaction after hearing those words? In the Ganlu Palace, after dealing with the last memorial, Li Er raised his head and asked Zhao Song. Zhao Song bowed and said, "Your Majesty," the East County Duke said. "His Majesty is diligent and loves the people, but he still has to work hard for such a villain. He is deeply indebted to the Emperor, but he can't share the Emperor's worries and find out the demons and monsters in the dark. He is ashamed to face the Emperor." "Humph, old man." Li Er snorted angrily. Zhao Song glanced at Li Er cautiously and didn't dare to answer. After a while, Li Er asked again, "Is there anything unusual about his expression?" Zhao Song pursed his lips and said, "There's nothing too obvious." Li Er smiled and said, "Oh? Then there's something unusual? I'm not very sure, so I don't dare to jump to conclusions." Li Er stood up and pointed at Zhao Song. "Zhao Song, Zhao Song. After so many years, you're still so cautious. Don't worry and say it boldly. I'll make the final decision in my heart." Only then did Zhao Song tell the truth. "Your Majesty, when I said, if you don't want others to know about it, don't do it in the first place, I clearly saw Duke Dong's eyelids twitch twice. Also, with all due respect, with my many years of experience, there was panic and uneasiness in the East County Duke's eyes, but it was fleeting." Li Er's face sank and he frowned. "Huh. This old man really has something up his sleeve." At this moment, Li Er remembered that during the day, Li Zishuan said that the reason why the 7 cultivators sect Snake King came down the mountain to avenge his disciple was probably because the aristocratic family deliberately released the news to kill with a borrowed knife. He asked Zhao Song to go to Cui Junchuo's residence to test it out. Now, looking at the situation, the Cui family probably played some dishonorable role in it. The reason why Li Er came to this conclusion was mainly because he believed in the observation skills of a master. Although Cui Junchuo was an old fox, Zhao Song's eyesight was also good. "Send someone to keep an eye on him. If he doesn't behave, then I can only..." The next day. East Market of Chang'an City. Huji Grain Store. Shopkeeper Shen, last month, our grain store still had 1,500 strings of coins left. Among them, the Yun family in Yongning Square had 200 strings of coins, the Chow family's restaurant had 370 strings of coins, the Su family in Anqing Square had 215 strings of coins, the Zhu family in Chonghua Square had 300 strings of coins, the Hu family's restaurant had 280 strings of coins, and the Miao family in Changshu Square had 135 strings of coins. Here, I've written these accounts for you. You can have someone check them later. Meng Wenhao picked up an account book, walked to the counter in front of the grain store, and handed it to an old man in a scholarly robe. The old man took the account book, nodded and said, "Hey, little brother Meng, this old man can rest assured that you're the one who did the accounting. But are you leaving now? Do you want to tell young mistress?" Meng Wenhao hurriedly shook his head and said, "No, no need. I've already told young master and young mistress earlier. Thank you for taking care of me for the past month. Wenhao is very grateful." The old man waved his hand and said, "Ha ha. Little brother Meng, you're too polite. It's your own ability that's great. This old man didn't help you with anything." Although he said that, from the expression on the old man's face, he still enjoyed Meng Wenhao's compliment. "Shopkeeper Shin, you're too modest. Since the work here has been handed over, then Wenhao will take his leave." Meng Wenhao bowed, then put away the package and prepared to go out. "Meng Wenhao, stop right there." At this moment, a delicate voice came from outside the house. Then, a girl in a light pink dress, slightly plump, and with a passable appearance, walked in. Then she looked at Meng Wenhao with burning eyes and said, "Meng Wenhao, are you in such a hurry to leave? Do you not want to see me that much?" Meng Wenhao's footsteps stopped, and the expression on his face was extremely awkward. He murmured, Young Mistress Hu, you're here. Call me Qingwan. The girl snorted and said with dissatisfaction, Meng Wenhao, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Could it be that someone here made you unhappy? Or are you not satisfied with your current salary? Hearing what she said, the shopkeepers and workers in the grain store all kept quiet out of fear. Then they looked at Meng Wenhao anxiously, afraid that this young man would say something he shouldn't. Meng Wenhao waved his hands and said, No. I'm very happy here. Shopkeeper Shen and the others take good care of me, and Squire Hu gives me a very high salary. There's nothing I'm dissatisfied with. After he said that, the shopkeepers and workers all breathed a sigh of relief. Hu Qingwan frowned and said, Since you're happy here and satisfied with your salary, then why do you still want to leave? After saying that, the girl put her hands on her small waist. She put her hands on her waist and took a step forward, looking at Meng Wenhao with burning eyes, with an aggressive posture. Meng Wenhao timidly took 2 steps back and said, Young Mistress Hu, Qingwan, I'm very grateful to you and Squire Hu for giving me such a high salary, but it's already August. I came here to be an accountant just to help reduce my mother's burden. Although I made a lot of money, I missed a lot of things because of it. I, Meng Wenhao, am a disciple of Mr. Li, and I'm studying engineering. Yanhuang College started construction more than a month ago, and the students from the School of Mathematics all went to Yunshan to help, but I couldn't go. Now that school is about to start, I have to go back to Yunshan to help. So I can only leave. Hu Qingwan pouted her small mouth, holding the belt of her skirt with her hand, and hesitantly said, Then after you leave the college you don't have me in your heart? Cough, cough, cough. Hearing that, Old Man Shen's face turned red, and he coughed violently. Then, he waved at the workers in the grain store who were gossiping and scolded, What are you all standing here for? Come with me to move the grain. Let's go, let's go. The workers suddenly understood, and under Old Man Shen's lead, they all left the grain store. Before Old Man Shen left, he even considerately closed the door. Seeing that, Hu Qingwan also knew that she had misspoken, and her face quickly turned red. However, although she was shy, she still raised her head and looked directly into Meng Wenhao's eyes. Meng Wenhao was sweating profusely. This was the first time someone had confessed to him, and he didn't feel any better. His face was even redder than Hu Wanqing's. After hemming and hawing for a long time, Meng Wenhao opened his mouth and said, Qingwan, I'm very grateful for the care you and Minister Hu have given me during this period of time, but I don't intend to consider a romantic relationship right now. Your feelings, Hu Qingwan didn't wait for Meng Wenhao to finish and interrupted him. It's okay. If you don't consider it now, I can wait. Meng Wenhao rubbed his eyebrows, and his face was full of speechlessness. For more than a month, he was indeed very happy to be able to use what he learned to earn money, but this girl in front of him was his nightmare for the past month, and it made him very distressed. Chapter 583. Brother. Meng Wenhao left. Help me persuade him. Xinghua Square. Hu family. Hu Qingwan went straight to the backyard after returning from the grain store in the East Market. She found her brother, Hu Yuanbao, and said angrily, looking at her, her confession just now must have failed. Oh, Meng Wenhao? Little sister, who is Meng Wenhao? Has he formed his core? A plump and fair man was lying on a bamboo bed reading the Tang Dynasty daily. From afar, he looked like a pile of fat meat on the bed. When he heard Hu Qingwan's complaint, he casually replied, That's right. Core formation? What core? Hu Qingwan, who was angry, couldn't help but be stunned when she heard these inexplicable words and asked in confusion. Hu Yuanbao felt that he had misspoken and coughed dryly. Ahem. Nothing. I'm saying that Han Li is about to break through to the core formation stage. He hadn't read A Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality for a few days, so he planned to start reading it today. Just as he was reading it with relish, Hu Qingwan angrily came to find him. Therefore, before his mind could break away from the novel, he subconsciously replied to her. Hu Yuanbao. There was always a price to pay for being willful, and Hu Yuanbao thoroughly experienced it at this moment. After figuring out what core formation was, Hu Qingwan yelled angrily, which resounded throughout the Hu family's courtyard. The birds on the branches flapped their wings and fled in fright. Hu Yuanbao. I'm talking business with you. Can you not just stay at home and read novels all day long? Can you? Hu Yuanbao was so scared that his cheeks were trembling. He hurriedly said, Little sister, that's big brother's fault. You have something to say. Combined with Hu Qingwan's description of him just now, if he was in the modern world, he would definitely be a fat otakuj. Hu Qingwan snorted angrily. Meng Wenhao is gone. Help me keep him. Hu Yuanbao scratched his head in distress and asked weakly, Ahem. Little sister, I forgot who Meng Wenhao is. You didn't mention it just now. You. Hu Qingwan was so angry that her chest heaved up and down a few times. Meng Wenhao is the new accountant of our family's grain stores. Say you. Daddy asked you to help take care of the family business, but you didn't listen. Do you know how long it's been since you went out? You don't even know who your own accountant is. Hu Yuanbao licked his lips and walked over to grab Hu Qingwan's arm. Haha. Don't we still have you, little sister? You and Dad are enough for those businesses. Bullshit. I'm going to get married in a few years' time. Won't the family business that father earned still have to be passed to you? If you don't worry about it now, I'll see what you'll do in a few years. Hu Qingwan broke free from Hu Yuanbao's fat hands and cursed angrily with her hands on her hips. Hu Yuanbao shrunk his neck and said gloomily, Sigh. Annoying. Let's talk about these things later. Little sister, you just said that Meng Wenhao is our accountant. Since the accountant left, we can just find another one. In Chang'an City, there are at least 800 people who know how to do accounts. Hu Qingwan stomped her feet angrily and said, No. I like Meng Wenhao. You have to help me find a way to keep him. Even though Hu Yuanbao was used to his sister's outspoken words, he couldn't help but be shocked when he heard this sentence. He was stunned for a while before he said, That, little sister, didn't you say that you would wait a few years before getting married? If you have someone you like, wouldn't I have to help Dad manage the store a few years in advance? Little sister, do me a favor and give me a few more years. Hu Yuanbao, I'm going to kill you. Changle? Chengqian? Why are you here? On this afternoon, Li Zixuan had just returned from the workshop when he saw the two siblings, Li Chengqian and Li Lizzie, coming over. Changle was talking to Han Yushi, but Li Chengqian awkwardly didn't have anything to talk about. His eyes kept looking outside. When he saw Li Zixuan return, Li Chengqian's eyes lit up, and he hurriedly called out, Little Xian, you're finally back. Husband. Brother Little Xian. Han Yushi and Changle looked over and hurriedly stood up to greet him. Li Zixuan nodded in agreement. He walked into the front hall, and everyone sat down again. Li Zixuan asked again, Chengqian, Changle, why are you here today? Li Chengqian opened his mouth to answer, but Changle beat him to it and said, I'm here to chat with Sister Yushi. I haven't seen her for a long time, so I wanted to come over and take a look. It's quite boring to stay in the palace. Haha. Looks like you're embarrassed to say it. Then I'll help you say it. At this time, Li Chengqian laughed loudly and interrupted. Xiaofan, Changle wants to sit in your celestial lamp, so I brought her here. I didn't see you here, so I wanted to sit for a while before returning to the palace. I didn't expect you to come back. Changle's cheeks heated up, and she said angrily, Brother Crown Prince, you're talking nonsense. Didn't you want to sit too? Otherwise, why would you be so kind to bring Changle over? Li Zixuan smiled and waved his hand. Haha. It's okay, since you want to sit. Then go ahead. It's not like it's a rare item. But didn't I already give the blueprint of the fairy lamp to His Majesty earlier? Calculating the time, the craftsmen who will be supervising can make 1 or 2 fairy lamps by themselves. Li Chengqian shook his head and said, They can make it, but how can the fairy lamp they make be as stable as yours, little Xian? Your fairy lamp has been used for several days without any accidents, so I came over with Changle. Qing Ke originally said that she wanted to come over, but Yan Xiaoning called her to Yun Shanj. Li Zixuan suddenly understood and nodded. Okay. Chengqian, Changle, follow me to the west courtyard. The fairy lamp is over there. The siblings nodded happily. After Han Yushi saw that Li Zixuan had returned to entertain the 2 second-generation emperors, she went to do her own things and didn't follow him. Hey. Little Xian, don't untie this rope. When they arrived at the west courtyard, Li Zixuan was about to untie the long rope binding the fairy lamp when Li Chengqian hurriedly stopped him. Why? If I don't untie this thing, how will the fairy lamp fly away later? Li Zixuan was puzzled. Li Chengqian explained, just fly above your house, there's no need to fly out. Also, don't fly around on the fairy lamp like on the night of the Mid-Autumn Festival. As far as I know, Father won't like it. The general idea was, don't do that. Father won't like it. Li Zixuan was speechless. Chapter 584. All right. Then both of you can come up together. Li Zixuan already knew that Li Er didn't like fairy lamps flying everywhere. Otherwise, Li Er wouldn't have given him a hard time at the beginning. While cursing Li Er's stinginess in his heart, Li Zixuan checked the fairy lamp and said to Li Chengqian and Li Lizzie, Xiaofan, aren't you coming up? Li Chengqian was slightly startled. He looked at the unfamiliar fairy lamp and asked weakly. Although he had seen this thing before, he didn't know how to operate it. If some unknown malfunction occurred in the sky, wouldn't he and Changle be dead? Changle also looked at Li Zixuan with some worry, but she didn't question him. Li Zixuan asked curiously, Of course I'll go up. If I don't go up, how can this fairy fly into the sky? Li Chengqian opened his mouth wide and said in disbelief, Then why are you asking us to go up together? This thing can only hold 2 people at most, right? Li Zixuan was speechless. Who told you that this fairy lamp can only hold 3 people? There were 4 people on it last night. It's okay, come up together. After saying that, he took the lead and walked up, waving at the siblings. Li Chengqian was skeptical. After hesitating for a moment, he shook his head and said, No. It's better to do it one by one. This way, even if the fairy lamp malfunctions, you can still save Xiaoxian. Changle, you go up first. Changle nodded and said, Okay. Then the little girl walked happily to the fairy lamp. Li Zixuan said helplessly, Okay. Then let's do it one by one. However, he muttered in his heart, the richer and more powerful people are indeed afraid of death. After a series of operations, the celestial lamp slowly rose into the sky. Because there was a rope between the bamboo basket and the ground, the celestial lamp could only rise up to the height of a 4- or 5-story building. Moreover, the flying range was limited to the western courtyard. Facing the afternoon breeze, Li Zixuan's exhausted body and mind were greatly relaxed at this moment as he looked at the 108 streets of Chong, and in picturesque disorder. If it weren't for Changle and Li Chengqian beside him, he would definitely roar a few times to relax. The main thing was that there were too many things to do recently. Li Zixuan had never felt so tired, mentally and physically. Wow! Chong and city look so beautiful from the sky. It's so beautiful. After the fairy lamp stabilized, Changle walked to the edge of the bamboo basket and held it. She couldn't help but exclaim as she looked at the scenery below. The sun's reflection on her pink palace dress made her look like a fairy princess who had just come out of the palace. She was beautiful and beautiful. Haha, that's right. In this world, I'm afraid there's no city more beautiful than Chang'an. When Li Zixuan heard this, he sighed faintly and said, Those who were born in this era were very lucky. Those who were born in this era and in Chang'an were extremely lucky. They sat in the world's #1 city and enjoyed the protection of the most powerful empire in the world. Wherever they went, they could hold their heads high and not be bullied. But now he, a person with a modern soul, had inexplicably entered this time and space. Everything he did now would speed up the Tang Empire's path to invincibility. Although it was a little tiring, it was all worth it. After the academy was built, he would be much more relaxed. Brother Xiaoxian, have you been to many places? Changle turned around and asked crisply. Li Zixuan shook his head and said, No, I don't like to travel. But I've heard my master talk about many interesting places. Changle nodded and looked at the bulging ball-shaped canopy above her head. Suddenly she asked, Brother Xiaoxian, if we let this celestial lamp fly all the way up, will we fly to the moon? Then, we'll be able to see Fairy Chang'e. Li Zixuan was amused by her childish words and couldn't help but laugh. How is that possible? The moon is at least a few 100,000 miles away from us. How can we fly to the moon with this little celestial lamp? Also, we won't be able to breathe on the moon. We'll suffocate to death. Changle opened her mouth in shock and said in disbelief, That's so far. And according to what Brother Xiaoxian said, how does Fairy Chang'e live on the moon? Don't deities need to breathe? Haha. There are no deities in this world. Chang'e is just an ancient legend. There's nothing on the moon either. It's just a lonely rock without any life. Brother Xiaoxian, you know so much. No wonder Father is always praising you. Li Zixuan was stunned. Is that so? His Majesty praises me? Logically speaking, it was good enough that Li Er didn't insult him. Why would he praise him? If the person who said that wasn't Chang'e, he would definitely slap her. Hee. Although Father is strict on the surface, he knows who is virtuous and who is mediocre. It's just that he won't say it in front of you. Brother Xiaoxian, don't be fooled by Father's appearance. Chang'e giggled and winked playfully. She was extremely adorable. Li Zixuan couldn't help but smile and say, haha. If His Majesty knew that Chang'e told me all this, he would definitely be sad. Chang'e was slightly embarrassed. She just smiled and stared blankly at the scenery under the bamboo basket. However, she didn't continue the conversation. After a while, Li Zixuan suddenly asked, Chang'e, aren't you afraid to look down from such a high place? In ancient times, there were no airplanes or tall buildings with more than 10 or 20 floors. Most people wouldn't be able to adapt to such a high place for the first time. However, Chang'e was completely unaffected when she came up. It was really rare. Chang'e squinted her eyes and smiled. I'm not afraid. Because I know that even if I fall from here, Brother Xiaoxian will definitely be able to save me. Her smiling face and confident expression made her look like a little fairy. She had a huge charm that made people lose themselves in her. After a while, Li Zixuan shook his head and forcibly broke free from his obsession. He secretly thought that this little loli had a lot of charm. Then he touched his nose and said resentfully, Haha, Chang'e, you really think highly of me. Chang'e smiled and turned around without saying anything. However, her eyes flashed with unconcealable joy. Chapter 585. The next day. After Li Zixuan finished his breakfast, he arrived at the Cloud Mountain early in the morning. However, he unexpectedly saw an unexpected person. How? When did you come? Shouldn't you be at Huji Grain Store? Li Zixuan couldn't help but ask when he saw Meng Wenhao, who had disappeared for a long time, in Yan Xiaoning's temporary office. The last time he came to Cloud Mountain, Li Zixuan had invited a group of students from the School of Mathematics for a meal. He had heard a few students mention Meng Wenhao. They said that he was working as a bookkeeper in a grain shop to earn money to support his family. That was why he didn't come to Cloud Mountain with them. Li Zixuan understood that at that time. In his previous life, he had also worked during the holidays, so he didn't blame Meng Wenhao for this. Sir, you're here. I just came the day before yesterday. I'm a little late. Please don't blame me. Meng Wenhao saw Li Zixuan coming in and quickly stood up to greet him excitedly. However, Yan Xiaoning interrupted in annoyance. Look at your students. All of them are more active than you. A few days ago, someone was sitting on a fairy lamp and walking around Chang'an City. How carefree. Li Zixuan was speechless. I was just proving to everyone that I wasn't bragging, okay? It's not for my personal enjoyment? To a certain extent, I was also doing it for the future development of Yanhuang College. Yan Xiaoning curled his lips. Fine. You're the only one with such twisted logic. But speaking of which, your student is really good. Not only is he good at accounting, but he's also very charming. Li Zixuan was confused and asked, What do you mean? Meng Wenhao's face was red as he quickly said, Nothing, Commander Yan, please don't say it. This is something to be proud of. What's there to be embarrassed about? Yan Xiaoning patted Meng Wenhao's shoulder and laughed. Then he said to Li Zixuan, Little Xian, you still don't know, right? After you went to Huji Grain Store, not only did you beat their 4 bookkeepers in mathematics, but you also almost kidnapped their eldest daughter when you left. TSK. Li Zixuan was taken aback and asked with great interest. Oh? There was such a thing? Xiaoning, quickly tell me about it. After saying that, this guy quickly moved a stool over and sat in front of Yan Xiaoning. He looked like he was eager to hear some gossip. He didn't look like a gentleman at all. Meng Wenhao's eyelids twitched as he watched. He was speechless. Yan Xiaoning, on the other hand, was used to Li Zixuan's impulsive personality. He also sat down and began to tell Li Zixuan about Meng Wenhao's romantic affairs. Thus, the two men in the room began to gossip while the half-grown young man was sitting awkwardly at the side. After a few minutes, Li Zixuan understood the whole story. He stood up and laughed. "Wenhao, you're really something. You haven't even graduated and you've already learned how to flirt. Ha ha. Not bad, not bad." Meng Wenhao was embarrassed. Although he didn't know what flirting meant, he could roughly guess. He muttered, "Sir, I just want to use what I've learned to earn some pocket money. I don't intend to provoke anyone." Li Zixuan waved his hand and said, "Ha ha. You don't have to explain to me. I still believe in your character. But why didn't you accept the eldest daughter of the Hu family?" This. Meng Wenhao scratched his head in embarrassment. He didn't know how to answer. Li Zixuan looked at Yan Xiaoning and asked, "Is it because of her appearance?" "Xiaoning, what does the eldest daughter of the Hu family look like?" Yan Xiaoning held back his laughter and said, "Her facial features are all right. It's just that her figure is slightly plump. There's nothing bad about it." "Oh." Li Zixuan replied with a meaningful "oh." Meng Wenhao quickly said, "Sir, it's not because of her appearance. It's just that I'm still young and haven't considered marriage." Yan Xiaoning curled his lips and said, "Tisk, pretentious. If it wasn't because of her appearance, then it would be weird." "Oh right." Li Zixuan suddenly thought of something and asked, "Xiaoning, don't you like girls with plump figures?" He remembered that many books in his previous life wrote that the Tangs viewed plump people as beautiful. Logically speaking, since Miss Hu's facial features weren't bad and her figure was slightly plump, such a girl should be more popular nowadays. But looking at them now, it was obviously not the case. Yan Xiaoning said in disdain, "Goat! Who said that I like girls with plump figures? I don't see you like girls like that. Why do we have to like them? Wenhao, do you like girls like that?" Meng Wenhao hesitated for a moment but still shook his head. Li Zixuan sweated and thought to himself, "Did I remember wrongly again?" He didn't remember wrongly. He was just misled. In his previous life, the saying that the Tangs viewed plump women as beautiful had been around for a long time and was widely spread. Some experts, after some research, asserted that the Tangs did view plump women as beautiful. They also pointed out several reasons why the Tangs viewed plump women as beautiful. The Tangs' economy was prosperous, and people had the means to eat well and wear warm clothes to maintain healthy and plump bodies. The Tangs' culture was open and inclusive, and they were generous and fat. The Tang's Xianbei bloodline in the Tang's royal family made them innately fond of women with strong bodies. In reality, this saying was wrong, or at least not accurate. The reason why people thought that the Tangs viewed plump women as beautiful was mainly based on Yang Guifei's body shape and the images of women in the Tang's palace paintings and paintings. In fact, as long as one looked carefully at the famous Tang's Yan Liban's walking carriage painting and Zhou Feng's flower hairpin painting, it was not difficult to find that the palace maids and ladies in the paintings were not plump at all. The 9 palace maids in the walking carriage painting clustered around Li Shimin as they walked slowly. Some were carrying the carriage, some were holding umbrellas, and some were holding fans. They all seemed to have some strength and were definitely not sickly beauties who could not stand a gust of wind. However, looking at their figures, they were all quite slender. The women in the flower hairpin painting were probably of noble status and slightly older. Their figures were slightly plump, but their standing posture was graceful, as light as the spring breeze brushing the willows. There was no doubt that their figures could be described with the word slender. Regarding Yang Guifei, there were records in the literature that she was fat and afraid of heat. For example, the legacy of Kai Yuan Tian Bao said that she was fat and hot until summer. However, Yang Guifei's fat body was definitely not as plump as people said today. At most, he had some muscles, which was what the outside biography of Yang Taizhen called just a little bit of muscle. A person who was good at dancing, the rainbow-colored feather dance was her representative work, would definitely do a lot of physical exercises, so it was normal to have a bit of muscle. Yang Guifei's fear of heat was actually not because she was fat, but because of her physique. According to the legacy of Kai Yuan Tian Bao, Yang Guifei often went to the back garden in the early hours of the morning to suck on the flower due to moisten her throat. In order to moisten her lungs, Yang Guifei would have a piece of cool jade fish in her mouth every day in the summer. Moreover, there were no historical records that showed that Yang Guifei was favored by Emperor Ming of the Tang dynasty because she was fat or plump. According to the old and new Tang books about Yang Guifei was favored mainly because of her good aptitude. Specifically, it included good at singing and dancing, good at music, wise and alert, welcoming and understanding, the new Tang book. That was, she had literary skills, was smart, and understood others. In addition, poet Saint Du Fu described in the poem Beauty's Walk, her posture is deep and true, her skin is delicate and even. That was gorgeous, dignified, temperament, and delicate skin. In reality, Emperor Ming of the Tang dynasty did not appreciate Yang Guifei's muscles. According to the biography of Yang Taizhen, Emperor Ming of the Tang dynasty was reading the biography of Emperor Cheng of Han in the Baihua courtyard. After Yang Guifei saw it, she asked him what he was reading. Emperor Ming of the Tang dynasty smiled and said, "Don't ask. You will feel bad if you know." Yang Guifei snatched the book and saw that it said, Emperor Cheng of Han obtained the flying swallow, and his body was light and unable to withstand the wind. Fearing that he was floating, the emperor made a crystal plate and ordered the palace servants to dance and dance. At this time, Emperor Ming of the Tang dynasty joked with her and said, "You can withstand the wind more than her." Yang Guifei was not convinced and confidently expressed that her rainbow-colored feather dance surpassed Xiaofan's. When Li Bai was enshrined in Hanlin, he was ordered to write 3 songs of purity and peace, to praise Yang Guifei's beauty and the life in the palace at that time. The second one was dedicated to Yang Guifei's beauty. A stick of red dew and fragrance, the clouds and rain Wuxian heartbroken. Who in the Han palace can be like her? Poor flying swallow is wearing new makeup. In the poem, Yang Guifei was compared to a peony and Xiaofan. If Yang Guifei was really a fat person, she could form a sharp contrast with Xiaofan. Then, this comparison would be a mockery and disobedience. It was very likely that Yang Guifei herself also admired Xiaofan and was willing for others to compare her to Xiaofan. It was said that Yang Guifei had the nickname of Fat Maid, which was very likely a curse from people who were jealous and hated her, such as concubine Mei. From this, it could be seen that people at that time did not view fat as beauty. The most interesting were 2 lines of Bai Juyi's poem, A Fat Horse Walks Fast, A Prostitute Sings and Dances, 3 poems with feelings. Fat horses are beautiful, the 6 horses of Zhaoling are all fat and strong, but thin and tall prostitutes are beautiful. Being fat is an unforgivable flaw for prostitutes. The famous poet Du Mu met a fat prostitute in Shaanxi, a bar girl, who urged him to drink. He immediately wrote a poem that was extremely sarcastic and ugly. Take a look. At that time, Pangu had a distant grandson, and he still ordered today to show off his family. A cart of white earth covered with mud, and 10 red flags patched up. In the Wagwan temple there were traces of footsteps, and in front of Huaiyue mountain there were palm marks. There was no need to be melancholy and worry about marriage. Waiting to ask Lekuan. All kinds of evidence showed that the Tang people saying that fat was beautiful lacked evidence. Moreover, this was the first year of Zhengguan, and the Tang dynasty had only been established for less than 10 years. Even if the Tang dynasty had a trend of fat being beautiful, it certainly hadn't been completely established yet. At the very least, Empress Zhongsun and Princess Changle were not fat, and were very slim. F***ck, there's a problem here. Li Zixuan muttered to himself. He suddenly remembered that he had seen Empress Zhongsun, and realized that at this time, people didn't think fat was beautiful. Otherwise, Empress Zhongsun wouldn't be so thin. Chapter 586. Hello, boss. Good. How are you guys? Is there any difficulty in harvesting the food at home? Hi. No difficulty. I asked my wife to ask the 3 uncles to help us harvest the food, so there's no problem. On the other hand, it's us who have taken too much money from you, boss. We feel a little ashamed. Haha. What's there to be ashamed of? This is all earned through your own sweat and hard work. Just take it with a peace of mind. Don't tire yourself out too much. It's not worth it if you get a heat stroke. Hey. Don't worry, boss. We're not that delicate. Besides, Commander Yen doesn't let us work in the afternoon. We won't get a heat stroke even if we want to. After teasing Meng Wenhao in the house, Yen Xiaoning brought Li Zixuan to inspect the construction site. Li Zixuan looked at the tall buildings that rose from the ground and casually chatted with some of the workers by the roadside. Although it was called chatting, it wasn't really chatting. There was a lot of evidence that proved that a leader's occasional concern for his subordinates was very useful in improving the overall work efficiency. This couldn't be called showing off, but encouraging. Ever since Li Zixuan had brought the first crane to Yunshan, more and more people had discovered the huge advantage that machines had over humans. In response to Yan Xiaoning's strong request, the workshop had sent more than 20 cranes one after another. This was a sharp weapon that was ahead of the times. In addition to the large number of workers, it directly led to the construction speed of the academy to be greatly improved once again. Now, the situation on Yunshan was really changing day by day. Xiaoxian. A few old masters and I estimated that the main building of Yanhuang College, the bishop, canteen, dormitory, bathhouse and library, will be completed by the end of this month. Walking on the hard and flat cement road, Yan Xiaoning felt quite emotional. He had never seen such a cement road and such high-rise buildings before, but now he had built them, which filled him with a sense of achievement. Perhaps with this academy, he could be ranked as a top master architect like his father. At this time, the two of them arrived at the back of the college. Yan Xiaoning said to Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan heard it and said in surprise, "So fast?" Yan Xiaoning laughed and said, "Heh, it's not that fast. Little Xian, on your way here, you should be able to see that many of the buildings are about to be completed. In the future, I plan to divide these 10,000 people into 3 groups. One group will do the interior decoration of these buildings, another group will build other buildings, and the other group will follow your previous plan to create scenery for the academy. They will transplant trees and flowers, build fake mountains, dig lakes, and also build that sports field you want to build." Li Zixuan thought for a while and agreed, "Yeah, we'll do as you say." After the main building of the academy is completed, don't be in a hurry to dismiss the craftsmen and commoners. The later construction of the academy has been completed, and I don't lack money now. Also, in addition to the buildings that I have planned earlier, I need you to send a group of people out to help me build some independent buildings behind the academy. I will give you the blueprints later." Yan Xiaoning asked curiously, "What do you want these small buildings for?" Li Zixuan laughed and said, "Xiaoning, didn't you read the newspaper earlier? The academy will assign some professors to their own houses. Although the academy doesn't have any professors now, I have to prepare these houses in advance. You can't go back on your words. The environment here in Yunshan is beautiful, and I believe many people will be willing to live here. Later, I will find a good location here and build a house for myself." Yan Xiaoning was speechless and said, "I think you have too much money and nowhere to spend it. If you build a house here, how many days can you stay in a year?" Li Zixuan didn't think much of it and said, "That's hard to say. Who knows, maybe I will always live here." "Hey, Xiaoning, don't you want to consider building one too? The house I want to build is different from the one we are living in now. You will definitely be jealous when you see it." Yan Xiaoning was actually a little tempted. He thought for a while and said, "Cough cough. Little Xian, look at how hard I have worked for the academy these 2 months. Aren't you going to give me a house for free?" Li Zixuan sneered and said, "Chage. In your dreams. At most, I will give you a 20% discount based on the cost of the house. The rest will be from me." Yan Xiaoning said angrily, "F***CK. You are too much, aren't you? If you are like this, I will quit. You can go find whoever you want." Hey. Don't. Let's talk about it. How about I give you a 40% discount? Not good. 50%? How about 50%? Hee. Then I will go back and pack my luggage. Hey. Don't. Consider it my bad luck to have such a bad friend. I will give it to you for free." After some bickering, Yan Xiaoning emerged victorious and obtained a cloud mountain villa that had yet to be built for free. Although Li Zixuan looked angry on the surface, he wasn't angry at all in his heart. Firstly, he didn't really care about this little bit of money. Secondly, Yan Xiaoning had a share in the first batch of cloud mountain villas. What he said just now was just a joke. "Xiaoning, how do you think the academy will solve the water problem in the future?" Li Zixuan came to Yunshan today not only to inspect the progress of the academy's construction, but also to solve the academy's water problem. However, after walking around Yunshan for so long and even walking around the forest behind the academy, he still did not see a waterfall or a river. This made him a little disappointed, so he asked. Yan Xiaoning was happy that he finally got some benefits from the miser Li Zishuan. When he heard this question, he could not help but be stunned and answered subconsciously, "What's so difficult about that? There are so many wells in Plum Village and the Han family village at the foot of the mountain. Also, there is the Ba River beside Plum Village. Is there a lack of water? We just have to find some people to carry water up every day." Li Zishuan shook his head and said, "This is not a long-term solution. The scale of the academy will definitely get bigger and bigger, and there will be more and more students. When that time comes, how can the academy's daily water consumption be met by just carrying water up the mountain?" Yan Xiaoning was helpless and said, "Then what do you think?" Li Zishuan thought for a while and asked, "Xiaoning, do you think we can use a water wheel to carry water up the mountain?" Things like water wheels didn't require a lot of technology. Tubular water wheels had already appeared in the Sui dynasty. Many protagonists in time travel novels who went to ancient times relied on water wheels to become famous. This was more or less inappropriate. Li Zishuan still had some knowledge of this common knowledge, so he asked directly. Chapter 587. Xiaoxian, are you talking about the water tanker? Yan Xiaoning looked at Li Zishuan on Yunshan Mountain and asked. Li Zishuan nodded. Yes, it's the water tanker. If this water tanker doesn't work, I can design a new water tanker with more power and a longer transmission distance. He had several water tanker models in his mind, but he wasn't familiar with them. He didn't know if they could be used in Yanhuang College. If it weren't for the fact that the power system wasn't easy to solve, he would definitely build his own water tanker. For him, it was easy to build a water tanker, but the difficult part was the problem of the power required for the water tanker. He still lacked the materials for an internal combustion engine, and he didn't have a stable power supply system for an electric motor. Therefore, he could only rely on the water tanker. Although Yan Xiaoning was confident in Li Zishuan's creativity, he still shook his head and said, "I don't think it's possible. Yanhuang College is too far away from Ba River, and the terrain is too high. It's impossible to use a water tanker to transport water. Even if it can be transported up, it can't be too much. Even if you can make a water tanker with more power, I think it's still useless and not worth the loss." Li Zishuan rubbed his eyebrows and seemed to be a little distressed. After hesitating for a while, he gritted his teeth and said, "How about this, Xiaoning? Help me find a group of well builders and ask them to find a suitable place on Yunshan Mountain and dig a few wells for me. In the early stage of the college, let's transport water from the foot of the mountain." Yan Xiaoning opened his eyes wide and said, "Are you crazy? Yunshan Mountain is so high. How can you dig a well?" However, Li Zishuan shook his head and disagreed. "Xiaoning, you're wrong. Although Cloud Mountain is relatively high, the trees on the mountain are dense and there's plenty of rain all year round. Some places can still be dug out. When the time comes, you can find an experienced craftsman and you should be able to find a few good spots. There's a saying that it's futile to dig a well on the mountain. Many people think that it's impossible to dig underground water because of the high terrain on the mountain. This is a misconception. In fact, there are places on the mountain where underground water can be found. Underground water didn't only exist on flat land, but also on high mountains. Sometimes, there was no water at all in places lower than the horizon. The existence of underground water was related to the structure of rock strata. Some rock strata couldn't store water, while some rock strata had confined water. Besides, there were soil, trees, and flowers on the mountain. These things were the main factors for storing water. If the soil and water were well preserved, it was not impossible to dig up water by just digging 2 or 3 meters. In Li Zishuan's previous life, one of his relatives had contracted a mountain to raise chickens. Because the mountain was high and there was no running water, his relative had hired someone to dig a well on the mountain. In the end, they only dug 1.5 meters before they found water. Therefore, when it came to digging a well, the terrain was not the deciding factor. Yan Xiaoning, on the other hand, didn't understand these things. He asked skeptically, "Can you really dig a well out of such a high mountain?" Li Zishuan said confidently, "Definitely. Don't worry, Xiaoning. As long as the craftsmen are experienced and can distinguish the water level, they will definitely be able to dig a well in Yunshan. All right. Tomorrow, I'll arrange for someone to go to Chong and to look for a well-builder. In Yunshan, the construction of the college was in full swing. In Datong Daily, there were waves of publicity about Gongshui and Yanhuang College. When Gongshui was first publicized, Ma Zhou had arranged for a group of people to study Li Zixuan's published articles. Many people in the editorial department had a deeper understanding of Gongshui, so there was no need for Li Zixuan to do the publicity. There were plenty of people in the editorial department who were talented in this field. Therefore, recently, the news section of the newspaper was almost filled with the words Yanhuang College and Gongshui. Under such fierce publicity, more and more people knew what Gongshui was, and what kind of college Yanhuang College was being built outside Chang'an City. Gongshui. Yanhuang Academy. In an instant, their momentum was like a rainbow. Of course, in the past, there would be many Confucian defenders who would jump out and criticize Li Zixuan for bragging about Gongshui in the newspaper. However, since Cui Yunhan left Cheongzhou and Li Zixuan flew to Chang'an City in the middle of autumn, almost all the voices of opposition died down. First, they were unreasonable, and second, they were cowards. Moreover, as the Wang family quickly sold the newspapers to other states and counties, Gongshui and Yanhuang College's reputation began to radiate to other regions. In particular, the story of Li Zixuan flying into the sky on the Mid-Autumn Festival was particularly shocking. The most intuitive manifestation was that according to the data fed back by the branches of Tang Dynasty Daily, the number of students signing up for Yanhuang Academy began to show an exponential explosive growth. As early as 2 days ago, it had already exceeded 2,000 people. If this data were to be announced, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. This was because even the Directorate of Education and the Hongwen School combined didn't have that many students. Of course, there were many students who signed up on impulse after seeing the news. It was very likely that they hadn't fully grasped the subjects of Yanhuang College's entrance exam. Even if they came to take the exam, they wouldn't have any hope of getting in. More students chose to buy a new mathematics textbook and read it at home. If they could understand it and learn it well, then they would sign up. If they didn't understand it, then they wouldn't sign up. This could be seen from the sales of the new mathematics textbooks. Up until now, Chitsu Culture's mathematics textbooks had already sold more than 50,000 books. 50,000 versus 2,000. This was a very large disparity. Of course, there were also some mathematics enthusiasts who just wanted to study Li Zixuan's new mathematics textbook. In addition to the increase in students signing up, there were also more and more people who wanted to apply to be Yanhuang College's teachers. First, it was because Li Zixuan's salary was too generous. Second, it was because Gongshui and Yanhuang College couldn't be more popular now. If they came to teach here, they could gain both fame and fortune. Only fools wouldn't come. First, there were some famous scholars in Chang'an. They were the first to come to Li Zixuan for an interview. These days, Li Zixuan held 10 interviews, but he only hired one person, and it was an old acquaintance. When he was in the Directorate of Education, Assistant Professor Mao, who sat opposite him in the office, followed closely behind Su Hongji and also wanted to change jobs. The rest of the people were either too deeply influenced by Confucianism, or they didn't have any teaching skills at all. They were the type that completely followed the script. Li Zixuan said that he couldn't even listen to such boring lectures, so how could his future students be willing to listen? Therefore, of the 10 teachers who came to apply, only one was successful. The low acceptance rate of Yanhuang College's teachers gradually spread out. Chapter 588. On August 26, the first year of Zhengguan, Yanhuang College's main buildings, including the cafeteria, the library, the dormitory, and the bathhouse, were all completed. The magnificent cement skyscraper stood at the top of Yunshan Mountain, silently showing the world the majesty of Yanhuang College. Those who were observant had already discovered that there was a giant on Yunshan Mountain. On this day, many people saw that Yanhuang College's skyscrapers had been completed. Many people called their friends and came to Yunshan Mountain to watch the fun. Tisk, TSK. Li Xianji is really rich. He built so many skyscrapers just like that. And he built it so quickly. He probably hired a lot of people, right? I heard that he hired tens of thousands of people. Our neighbor, Fatty Pan, has been hired, and the pay is not ordinary. Hey, old Nyo, why weren't you invited? Is it because your body is weak and you weren't chosen by Lord Li? Hee hee. Could it be that Cui Nyang emptied your body last night? Ah! A certain frivolous man made a frivolous joke, which made the people around him burst into laughter. The young man who was mocked blushed and then said angrily, "LV de Zhuang, F** king bullshit. Do you want to fight? Come on, I'm not afraid of you. Hey, don't embarrass yourselves here. This is a place for educated people to study. How can you fight like this? That's right, that's right. This is outrageous. Hey, old Meng, look at the road on this mountain. It's completely different from the blue stone road at the foot of the mountain. It's hard and flat. I wonder what material it's made of. Oh, I heard from the Han family village that it's called cement. Cement can be used to make roads when mixed with sand and stones. And look, it's not just the road. Yanhuang College's walls are also covered with cement. They're using cement to replace glutinous rice mortar. An old man with coarse white hair, holding a walking stick and stroking his beard, slowly told the truth. Cement? What's cement? Where can I buy it? Looks like it's pretty useful. The house built with this looks quite sturdy, but I wonder how much more expensive it is than glutinous rice mortar. The coarse-clothed old man shook his head and laughed. Hee hee. Many people want to buy it, but it's not on sale yet. Why is that? Is there anything money can't buy? What's so strange about that? It was said that this cement was invented by Lord Li himself. Of course, he would use it for his own academy first. It's not like Lord Li lacks money. Oh, so that's how it is. Lord Li has really put in a lot of effort for this academy. TSK. Yanhuang College's skyscraper looked so imposing. Which family's kid would be lucky if he could get in? I heard that there's no tuition fee here, and you can even learn Lord Li's skills. That's right. My child is already preparing for Yanhuang College's entrance exam. If he doesn't pass this year, he'll take the exam next year. Tisk. How can your stupid son get into Yanhuang College? Why is it impossible? For the first time, Yanhuang College's image was more complete in front of the world. The people who came to watch the fun saw this magnificent and mysterious academy. The older people with children of the right age were all thinking of ways to send their children to Yanhuang College. The younger people were thinking about how to persuade their parents so that they could apply for Yanhuang College. Excuse me. Please make way. At this moment, dozens of ox carts suddenly appeared on the mountain road. The person in the lead was Li Tai. When the little fatty saw that so many people came to watch the academy today, he couldn't help but frown and ask the people to disperse. When the crowd heard the shout, they subconsciously opened up a path. However, when they saw the contents of the car, their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Hiss. This is colored glass? This is top-notch colored glaze. Every piece is so big and beautiful. There are nearly 10 carts of colored glass. Why did Yanhuang College bring so much colored glass? Who knows? Maybe we can use it in one of the houses. Yanhuang College's architecture can't be estimated with common sense. Oh my God, how much is this? In fact, not only were the onlookers dumbfounded, but the people who followed Li Tai to the workshop to transport the colored glass were also dumbfounded. In this era, colored glass was worth as much as gold. When these people saw so much colored glass in the workshop in the morning, they were almost blinded. However, after walking for such a long time, they gradually got used to it. At this time, when they saw that there were people who were as shocked as they were at the beginning, they more or less felt a sense of superiority. Be careful. Come, bring all this colored glass to Guanghua Building first. We'll have to make 2 more trips later. Li Tai commanded the convoy as he spoke in a clear voice. When the onlookers heard that, they almost fell to the ground. So this amount of colored glass wasn't enough? They still had to make 2 more trips. Today they finally saw what it meant to be a rich person. Even gold was transported by carts. But soon, they also understood why Li Tai brought so much colored glass over. Oh my God, look! They're using colored glass as windows. A sharp-eyed young man suddenly saw 3 craftsmen installing a piece of colored glass on a gap in the wall on the first floor of Yanhuang College's main building. He tilted his head and thought for a while, then suddenly came to his senses and couldn't help but exclaim in horror. Oh my God! Is Lord Li crazy? Even if he's rich, he can't waste it like this. What a waste of natural resources. I was just wondering why there were so many gaps in the walls of Yanhuang College's buildings. Aren't they afraid of the cold wind in winter? I didn't expect them to be used to install windows. This window is enough for a family to eat for decades. Lord Li is really a rich man. Ha ha. That's. If Lord Li doesn't have money, who else would have money? However, Lord Li earns money openly and honestly, so no one can say anything about it. Hey. You don't say. These houses with colored glass windows are quite beautiful. The inside of the house must be very bright. It's true. Not only are these colored glass windows beautiful, but they also let in light and block the wind. Lord Li really knows how to have fun. Sigh. I really regret not letting my child prepare for Yanhuang College's entrance exam as soon as possible. It's probably too late now. Chapter 589. Although using colored glass to make windows had never happened in the Tang dynasty, it was completely normal for a modern person like Li Zixuan. Moreover, unlike the current mainstream architectural style of courtyards, the high-rise buildings of the Yanhuang Academy contained hundreds of rooms in each building. This kind of house built with bricks and cement, if not for the glass windows, would be as dark as night even in the day. As for the expensive cost of colored glass that shocked others, it wasn't a problem for Li Zixuan at all. This was because the bright and transparent colored glass was just a pile of sand in his eyes. Gu Xiaomao, how's the well-digging craftsman that I asked you to find coming along? In the temporary office, Yan Xiaoning asked Gu Xiaomao to come in and asked. Gu Xiaomao bowed and reported to Yan Xiaoning. Commander Yan, I found many well-digging craftsmen in Chang'an City. When they heard that we were going to dig a well in the mountains, they all rejected us. They said that they wouldn't be able to dig water no matter how much money they were given. But this morning, I heard that there was a Master Liao in the south of the city who helped a temple dig a well in the mountains. So I went to his house to find him, but he was already out. I heard from his wife that he was digging a well for a village outside the city these few days. After saying that, he couldn't help but wipe the sweat off his forehead. He was really exhausted from searching everywhere for the past 2 days. Yan Xiaoning listened and frowned slightly. Since this Master Liao has experience in digging wells in the mountains, then invite him over as soon as possible. Time waits for no one. Go and tell him to put down the task on hand and we'll compensate him double for all his losses. After working with Li Zixuan for so long, Yan Xiaoning had learned to use money to solve problems that he couldn't solve. Cough cough. Besides, he didn't have to pay for it himself. Gu Xiaomao quickly replied. Yes, Commander Yan. Then I'll go and find Master Liao now. Yan Xiaoning let out a soft and said, Okay. Go. Thank you for your hard work. Gu Xiaomao scratched his head excitedly and giggled. Hee hee. It's not hard. It's not hard. In fact, installing glass windows in all the completed buildings was only the first step. Later, there were also tables and chairs for classrooms and cafeterias, boilers, water towers, and pipes for bathhouses, and beds for dormitories. Li Zixuan designed all these things according to the modern style. Of course, all of them were made by the workshop. This was also one of the reasons why the production of cement was only enough for Yanhuang College to use after so long. This was because in addition to cement, Li Zixuan would also assign tasks to the workshop from time to time. Today, they would produce a batch of colored glass. Tomorrow they would produce a batch of cranes. The day after that, they would produce some strange tables and chairs. It could be said that half of Yanhuang College's work was done by the workshop. 3 days later, at Yanhuang College. Commander Yan! Commander Yan! Out of the water! Out of the water! Yan Xiaoning was sorting out the recent assessment results of various engineering teams in the office when he heard Gu Xiaomao rushing in from outside while shouting, What's out of the water? Gu Xiaomao's words were very ambiguous, and Yan Xiaoning was dumbfounded. Huff huff. Commander Yan, it's Master Liao and the others who dug out water in the east of the college. Gu Xiaomao bent over and panted heavily. Yan Xiaoning's eyes widened. He said in disbelief, How is that possible? It hasn't even been 3 days. How can they dig out water? Gu Xiaomao said anxiously, It's true. If you don't believe me, you can follow me to take a look. Xiaomao, bring me to take a look first. Yan Xiaoning nodded. After pressing some of the information on the table with an ink slab, he followed Gu Xiaomao out of the door. Not long after, They arrived at a flat ground in the east of the college. This place was filled with dense trees and was very cool. At this time, many people had gathered to watch the show. Yan Xiaoning took a step forward and saw a deep well. However, he couldn't see if there was water in it. Master Liao, I heard that you guys dug out water? Yan Xiaoning glanced at the excited old man beside him and asked aloud. Hee. How can it be fake? Zhang De, put down a rope and bring up a bucket of water. Prove to Commander Yan that we're not bragging. The old man showed off proudly and then instructed the tanned brawny man beside him. Yes, got it, Master Liao. The brawny man laughed and then threw a wooden bucket tied with a rope into the well. Then, there was a plop sound. Although the bucket wasn't out yet, Yan Xiaoning no longer had any doubts at this moment. After the tanned brawny man brought out a bucket full of well water, everyone exclaimed. Yan Xiaoning cupped his hands and said to the old man, Master Liao is really capable. You can dig out a well in the Cloud Mountain in such a short time. I'm impressed. The old man grinned and waved his hand. Hee. It's nothing. It's nothing. We've agreed before. Yan Xiaoning smiled and said, Don't worry, Master Liao. We agreed on 10 strings of coins. You won't be short of a single cent. I just don't know if you can tell us how you know that water can be dug out from this position? The old man's face turned serious and said seriously, It's not that difficult. The branches and leaves here are luxuriant, clear, and smooth. Its momentum is slightly higher than that of the white tiger on the right peak. It echoes with the white tiger, circling left and right, protecting the Ming Tang. It's like a green dragon emerging from the water. If you dig 5 feet down from here, there will definitely be water. The onlookers were so surprised that their jaws almost dropped. They never thought that a well-digging master would know feng shui. Did he have to be so professional? Yan Xiaoning was also shocked. He opened his mouth and asked after a while, Master Liao, you know feng shui too? The old man laughed and revealed his mouth full of teeth. Then he said, Haha. When I was young, I was a Taoist priest in the Taoist temple for 7 to 8 years. Later, the Taoist temple was destroyed in the war, so I left the mountain. I only know a little about feng shui. Yan Xiaoning's mouth twitched slightly. A Taoist priest actually became a well digger. No matter how he thought about it, it didn't seem reliable. But no one expected that the combination of the two would have such a miraculous effect. Then Master Liao, help me dig 3 more wells. The price is the same as before. Yan Xiaoning exhaled a few times and said. Yanhuang College covered a huge area. 1 well was definitely not enough. Yan Xiaoning didn't expect this old man to be so efficient at digging wells. He decided to let him dig a few more wells while he was at it. With that, the Yanhuang Academy was basically ready. All that was left was for the final push. Chapter 590. While the construction of Yanhuang College was in full swing, Li Zishuan was not idle either. In fact, he was very miserable. Sigh. This speed is not good. It's been almost half a month, and I've only written 2 textbooks. It's a bit difficult to continue at this speed. Li Mansion, West Courtyard, Study. Li Zishuan looked at the 2 textbooks Mathematics, Volume 2, and Physics, Volume 1, on the table inside. If someone heard this sentence, they would definitely beat him up. One must know that compiling textbooks was a task that was done by a learned scholar. It would be good if he could compile 1 textbook in a year. But this guy had only compiled 2 in half a month, and he was still not satisfied. He wanted to go to heaven. However, Li Zishuan was not satisfied at all. The textbooks he wrote were all related subjects that he had learned in school in his previous life with abnormal mental strength. Naturally, others could not compete with him in terms of speed. But even so, Li Zishuan still felt that it was too slow because the academy would start in half a month. At first, he planned to open 4 courses for the students, but now there were still 2 textbooks that he had not written, chemistry and geography. Of course, the textbooks he wrote were not all mechanically copied. It was not that the first grade in Yanhuang College would learn what the first grade in the modern world learned. The 2 schools had different academic systems, which determined that the content of each stage of study was different. When he first wrote Mathematics, Volume 1, in Yanhuang College, the content in it already covered the first and second grade of primary school. But the students in the School of Mathematics had already learned almost half of the mathematics in Volume 1, so Li Zishuan wrote the mathematics in Volume 2. As for the 2 textbooks that were still missing, chemistry was not bad, but it would be very troublesome to teach because the chemical symbols in it were read according to the English alphabet in his previous life. But now it was the Tang dynasty. One could imagine the scene when the time came. Students, this is the chemical formula of water molecules, H2O, H2O. Come, remember it well. 233, 3333. This scene was simply too beautiful to imagine. As for the geography textbook, Li Zixuan did not know where to start, because he did not know the current territory of Tang dynasty. How could he make it up? Not to mention half a month, even if he was given half a year, he would not be able to make it up. However, he had no choice but to set up this course. Setting aside the issue of territory, there were many concepts in geography that were very useful. For example, the concept of scale in a map, the concept of up north and down south, the concept of left, west, right and east, the concept of latitude and longitude, contour lines, and so on. Ancient maps were not based on north and south, left, west and right. Many ancient maps of China adopted the setting of north and south, left, east and right. This might have something to do with the fact that the emperor sat in the north and faced the south. This was convenient for users to see, but there were also many ancient maps that used the setting of north and south. There was no uniform rule for this. As for latitude and longitude, no one in this era had defined the prime meridian. In modern times, the longitude that passes through the original site of the Greenwich Observatory in London, England is known as the 0-degree longitude, also known as the prime meridian. When he wrote the textbook, he could define the prime meridian as the longitude that a typical building in Chang'an passed through. In this way, hundreds or even thousands of years later, everyone would look at the map according to the latitude and longitude defined by Tang dynasty. Besides these, the most important use of geography was to allow students to clearly understand the world, to let them know that the Great Tang only occupied a palm-sized piece of land on the world map. This would be extremely useful in the era of great voyages in the future. Sigh. How should I compile this geography textbook? Everything else is easy, but where should I go to find information about the mountains and rivers in Tang dynasty? Li Zixuan rubbed his chin and fell into deep thought. Husband, are you still busy? This is the iced mung bean soup that I just made. Stop and have a taste. At this moment, the door was pushed open from the outside with a creak. Then, Han Yushi, who was wearing a thin white dress, walked in with a small bowl that was emitting cold air. When she saw Li Zixuan lying on the table and thinking hard, she couldn't help but feel a little sorry for him. Oh, my wife is here. Li Zixuan came back to his senses, then stood up and looked at Han Yushi and said, Het, my wife, why are you wasting your energy on such a hot day? Look at how hot you are. Let the people below do this work. Come and sit. Han Yushi smiled and put the mung bean soup on the table. Then she said unhappily, Husband, you also know that it's a hot day now. Then why have you been locking yourself in the house every day recently? Mother and I are worried that you will get sick from being cooped up. I know that my husband is working hard on the matters of the academy, but you can't tire yourself out because of this. Li Zixuan's heart warmed. He stepped forward and grabbed Han Yushi's soft hands. He smiled and said, Wife, don't worry. Your husband has martial arts. A mere hot day can't do anything to me. You just have to take care of yourself. Han Yushi rolled her eyes and said angrily, Husband, you're lying again. Who said that people who have martial arts are not afraid of the heat? Lu Guogong, the old man, has already taken a few carts of ice cubes from our house. You still want to fool me? Cough, cough. This. Li Zixuan was suddenly speechless. Han Yushi was right. They practiced martial arts. Although they were not afraid of the cold, they were generally quite afraid of the heat, unless you practiced the rarine attribute internal strength. Han Yushi picked up the small bowl and stuffed it into Li Zixuan's hand. She said, Okay. I know that my husband is busy, but you should drink this bowl of mung bean soup first. How could Li Zixuan disagree? He quickly nodded and replied, Okay. I'll drink it now. After saying that, he gulped down the bowl of mung bean soup in one gulp like a cow drinking water. A wave of unbridled coolness instantly erupted from within him, and he couldn't help but exclaim, Refreshing! Han Yushi smiled and put away the bowl. Then, she turned around and prepared to go out. However, she paused at the door and hesitated. My husband seems to have encountered some difficulties. My ability is limited, so I'm afraid I can't help much. However, my husband can go out for a walk and relax. Don't you have so many friends? You can ask them for help. There's no need to build a cart behind closed doors. I've been relying on the help of many people since I was young. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to marry my husband. After hearing this, Li Zixuan was silent for a while. Suddenly he laughed and said, I got it. Ha ha. Wife, you're really my lucky star. Chapter 591. Qing Ke you stop first. What's wrong? Xiao Xian, what's the matter? You stop first. Gu Xiaomao, from now on, you'll be the leader of the 8th team of the 1st Regiment. You'll be in charge of all the missions on Qing Ke. That afternoon, Li Zixuan went straight to Yunshan. After asking a craftsman, he found Li Tai, who was teaching others how to use the crane. He cut to the chase and went straight to the point. Li Tai, on the other hand, was dumbfounded. Little Xian, what are you doing now? Why did you remove me from the team leader position for no reason? Li Zixuan couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with this little fatty under the hot sun. He dragged him away and said, What do you mean by removing you from the team leader position? You brat, are you addicted to playing here? Come back to Chang'an with me. Li Tai tried to break free but couldn't. He could only ask, Why are we going back to Chang'an? Did my father ask you to call me back? Li Zixuan was furious. I'm not a eunuch who delivers messages to Second Master Li. Why would I come all the way here to deliver an imperial decree for Second Master Li? He paused and said angrily, No, I'm here to promote you. How can a mere team leader be worthy of you, Qing Ke? Li Tai was overjoyed and quickly asked, Haha, that's good. That's good. Xiao Xian, are you going to promote me to a regiment commander? Sigh. Wait, why are you bringing me back to Chang? And if you promote me to a regiment commander? Hey. Stop it. Bam. Get in. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Sanbao, start the car. Li Zixuan tossed little fatty into the carriage with one hand and jumped onto the carriage himself. He then instructed Sanbao. Luckily, Li Tai was still young. Otherwise, when he was in his 20s, he probably wouldn't even be able to enter the carriage. Luckily, Don't Touch Me was sturdy. Otherwise, with the little fatty's current weight, an ordinary carriage wouldn't be able to withstand his weight. Sigh. No, little Xian, what exactly do you want me to do? After returning to Chang'an, Li Zixuan directly brought Li Tai to the inner west courtyard of the mansion. Li Tai, who was following behind them, could not help but burst out in anger. Li Zixuan smiled and said, Didn't I just tell you? I'm here to promote you. From now on, you have been promoted from the captain of the construction corps to the deputy editor of the geography teaching materials of the academy. Before school reopens, you should just stay in Chang'an City and write books. That's right, Li Zixuan's idea was to capture Li Tai and make him an able-bodied man. Although this little fatty was arrogant and a bit of a jerk, he was impeccable in terms of knowledge. The history book's evaluation of him was, Li Tai is brilliant, intelligent, and has a love for literature. He has collected thousands of books. The most important point was that Li Tai had once presided over the compilation of the famous book, Jiao Di Ji, in the original history books. The book was divided into 358 states according to the 10 paths of Zhenguan. Then, with each state as a unit, it described the history, geography, names, mountains, cities, historical sites, myths, legends, and major historical events of each county. The extensive collection preserved many precious information from the geography books of the 6 dynasties, which had a deep impact on the later generations. Therefore, it was more than appropriate to get this little fatty to help write the geography teaching materials. Moreover, Li Tai had a literature center in his hands. Everyone there was a knowledgeable scholar. With these resources, it was simply half the work and twice the result. At that moment, Li Tai was puzzled and asked, Geography? Deputy editor? I definitely can't do that. Li Zixuan smiled and said, Geography is similar to Shangshu Yugong and the classic of mountains and seas, but there are some new concepts added in it. You just need to be responsible for completing the part about the Tang Empire. The classic of mountains and seas was written in the pre-Qin dynasty, and Shangshu Yugong was written in the Warring States period. This was considered the earliest famous geography book in our country. The author of Shangshu Yu Gong used geography as the basis for his ideal political division. He divided the world into 9 states, namely Ji, Yan, Qing, Su, Yang, Jing, Yu, Liang, and Yong. He also recorded all kinds of geographical phenomena in the country. It was a model of early regional geography research in China. It was cited in Commentary on the Classic of Water, Maps of Yuanhe County, and many other geographical works since the Tang and Song dynasties. Oh, so it's this. But doesn't Yanhuang College teach engineering? Why are you teaching geography now? Can't I? The college is mine. I can teach whatever I want. You. That hand is on me. If I don't want to, then I won't. Li Zixuan was already prepared for this little fatty's character. He smiled and said, "Are you sure? There are many benefits to being a compiler." "What benefits can there be?" Li Tai couldn't help but ask. Li Zixuan stretched out 3 fingers and said with a smile, "For example, in the first month of school, I'll allow you to take 3 days off. Take note, in the first month of school, I plan to let all the students undergo intensive training. Those days will be unbearable. TSK. Ching K, you have to think about it." Li Tai felt Li Zixuan's devilish smile and couldn't help but feel his scalp tingle. He paused and said, "Only 3 days? No way. It has to be 5 days." Li Zixuan snorted and said, "3 days means 3 days. If you don't want to do it, I'll find someone else. 3 days is already the limit of my tolerance." Li Zixuan knew very well that when dealing with people like this little fatty, he couldn't give in at all. Otherwise, this guy would definitely take advantage of him. Sure enough, Li Tai saw that Li Zixuan wasn't willing to budge. After hesitating for a while, he gritted his teeth and said, "Fine. 3 days it is. Tell me, how should we compile this geography textbook?" Li Zixuan shook his head and said, "You don't have to worry about this first. When you go back, gather all the scholars in your mansion to help you collect all the mountains and rivers in the Tang Empire. Then, about 7 days later, I'll send you a book. In this book, except for the part about the Tang Empire that has problems, the rest of the book and all the concepts in the book are all correct. When the time comes, you just need to make some adjustments on this foundation." This was also the most reasonable method that Li Zixuan came up with at the moment. First, make a complete copy of the modern geography book, then deduct the domestic part and give it to Li Tai to fill in. He believed that with this little fatty's understanding and ability, he could complete the whole book. Li Tai nodded thoughtfully and said, "Okay. Then I'll go back to the mansion to gather people. When your masterpiece comes, we'll start." "That's great." Chapter 592. After the little fatty left, Li Zixuan began another round of closed-door training. In the blink of an eye, another 7 days had passed. It was now September. In these 7 days, the renovations of the buildings that were previously completed in Yanhuang College had been completed. There were doors, windows, blackboards, tables, chairs, and lecterns in the classrooms. There were bunk beds, windows, and candlesticks in the dormitories. There were also small windows in the cafeteria that were similar to modern school cafeterias. There were also rows of neatly arranged tables and chairs. There were also rows of shower heads in the bathhouse. The current appearance of Yanhuang College was infinitely similar to that of a modern university. Other than the lack of electrical, multimedia, and other high-tech equipment, the gap between the two was getting smaller and smaller. From this point of view, Li Zixuan had spent a lot of money to buy a feeling of modernity. If a modern person were to transmigrate and see Yanhuang College, they would definitely think that they had transmigrated back. It was a pity that Li Zixuan had been busy compiling the teaching materials and did not see this scene at the first moment. "Feiji, send this book to the Prince of Wei's residence now. You must deliver it personally. Do not lose it on the way." In the Li residence, Li Zixuan walked out of the west courtyard with a haggard expression. He handed a book to Pang Feiji and solemnly instructed him. Of the 4 teaching materials, the one that required the most effort was undoubtedly geography. Other than the names of various places that needed to be corrected, there were also many maps. It was very troublesome to draw. Even with Li Zixuan's abnormal mental strength, he was still somewhat exhausted after so many days of work. If not for the fact that this college was the foundation for his family to establish themselves in the Tang dynasty, He would not have worked so hard even if he was given a mountain of gold and silver. Speaking of which, when the geography was printed in the future, the workshop would have to spend a lot of effort. This was because the text could be directly printed with movable type. However, the maps and the like would have to be carved by a master carver before they could be printed. The cost of this would be much higher. Yes, Lord Zhu. Seeing Li Zixuan's serious expression, Pang Feiji knew that this book was very important. He put the book into his pocket and cupped his fists towards Li Zixuan. Go. Li Zixuan rubbed his forehead and waved his hand. Logically speaking, he had spent so much effort on this book. Of course, he attached great importance to it. If it weren't for the fact that he was too tired, he would have gone there personally. However, when Pang Feiji was handling things, he was very assured. At least, Brother Chicken had never made any mistakes. Pang Feiji brought the plain-looking textbook out of Li Zixuan's house. Other than feeling a little reluctant to give away the textbook that he had worked so hard to write, he did not really care about anything else. What he didn't know was that the book he didn't care about had caused a huge commotion in the imperial court. Ha ha ha. Little Xian. I heard that you've been staying at home recently. Are you practicing martial arts in seclusion again? Li Zixuan was about to return to the west courtyard to rest when he heard a hearty laugh from outside. Then he saw the two brothers, Dugu Xian and Dugu Feiying, walking in from outside. The person who had spoken just now was Dugu Feiying. Li Zixuan felt that something was wrong. He squinted his eyes and looked at the two brothers for a while. He was a little surprised and said, "RX and you've entered the master stage?" The reason why he felt that something was wrong was because when the two of them came in, he could feel a strong aura rushing towards him. In the past, the two brothers would definitely not have such an aura. Then, he took a closer look and realized where the problem was. Dugu Xian had broken through. In just over a month, this guy had actually entered the master stage from the late stage of qi cultivation. How could he not be surprised? Dugu Xian nodded and walked over. He bowed deeply to Li Zixuan and said, "Thanks to you, little Xian. This is all thanks to you, little Xian, for helping me deduce the first 3 forms of the 9 swords beyond the swords. Otherwise, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to reach the Grandmaster realm in my lifetime. I, Dugu Xian, will never forget your kindness. In the future, if you need anything, I'll do my best." Yes. Including me. Dugu Feiying also chimed in. Li Zixuan was stunned and said in disbelief, 9 swords of Dugu? RXen, did you break through from the 9 swords of Dugu? Dugu Xian nodded and said, "Yes. But I only helped you deduce the first 3 sword moves. How can you comprehend with only 3 sword moves?" Speaking of this, Dugu Xian's expression became slightly excited. "After I brought the 3 sword moves that you deduced back home, I practiced them a few times at first and found that they were extremely unfamiliar. Later on, I realized that this 9 swords beyond the swords could actually resonate with our Dugu family's solitary wind swordsmanship, so I tried to combine the two. Unexpectedly, I actually comprehended the last 2 moves of the 9 swords beyond the whip move and the rope move. Then, I asked for leave from His Majesty and temporarily left the affairs of the Northern Yamen Imperial Army to focus on breaking through. In the end, hard work paid off. With the first 5 moves of the 9 swords of Dugu and the solitary wind sword technique, I broke through to the master stage 3 days ago." Li Zixuan raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect Dugu Xian to have such a fortuitous encounter. He also didn't expect that the 9 swords of Dugu, a sword technique that only existed in novels, could actually resonate with the Dugu family's solitary wind sword technique. This was a little unbelievable. Also, it was no wonder that when Cui Yunhan brought the scholar to the Li residence to cause trouble, the commander of the imperial army sent by Second Li wasn't Dugu Xian, but a small soldier in the imperial army, Sun Jiping. Sun Jiping also said that Dugu Xian had taken a leave of absence for a while. He didn't expect that he had taken a leave of absence to go home and cultivate in seclusion. Haha. Congratulations on breaking through to the master stage. RXin. Looks like our Tang Empire will have another young tiger. After a moment of shock, he congratulated Dugu Xian from the bottom of his heart. He and Dugu Xian were friends who had gone through life and death together. For Dugu Xian to have such a fortuitous encounter, he would only be happy for him and would definitely not be jealous. Moreover, his 9 swords of Taishan was not inferior to the 9 swords of Dugu at all, so there was nothing to envy others. Dugu Xian shook his head and said, This is mainly due to your help, Xiaofan. Moreover, compared to a 14-year-old master like you, mine is nothing. According to age, Dugu Xian was 27 or 28 years old this year. However, as long as he didn't compare himself to Li Zixuan, this monster, he could still be considered as one of the youngest people to break through to the master stage. Li Zixuan smiled and said, "No matter what, this is something worth celebrating. When we have time in the future, let's call Chowox and the others and have a good drink." Chapter 593. Little Xian, after my father found out that you were the one who gave me such a peerless sword technique like the 9 swords of Dugu, he was very grateful to you and wanted to thank you in person. He specially prepared some wine in his residence and sent us 2 brothers to invite you to his residence for a chat. I wonder if it's convenient for you? Li Residence, Front Hall. After Li Zixuan invited the Dugu brothers to take a seat in the front hall, Dugu Xian explained the purpose of his visit. Li Zixuan's hand that was holding the cup of water paused for a moment. He hesitated and said, "The 9 strategies beyond the swords was just an act of my heart. I didn't think that it could help Xian break through the realm by accident. This is completely your own good fortune. I don't dare to take credit for it. I'm very happy to accept your father's invitation, but I've been busy with the Academy's teaching materials recently and can't leave. So, let's meet another day. I hope your father will forgive me for my rudeness." Whether it was in ancient times or modern times, it was very rude to refuse an elder's invitation. What's more, Li Zixuan was rejecting the head of a powerful family. If it wasn't for the fact that he really couldn't get away, he wouldn't have done this. Dugu Xian came to a sudden realization. He glanced at Li Zixuan and said, "No wonder I heard that you've been cooped up in the manor recently, little Xian. So it's because of your Yanhuang College. It's okay, it's okay. Your academy matters more. My father definitely won't blame you." Dugu Xian knew quite a bit about Yanhuang College. First of all, Li Zixuan had put a lot of effort into this college. Secondly, Li Zixuan also had high hopes for this college. Therefore, after hearing Li Zixuan's reason, he understood quite well. Li Zixuan smiled and said, "Thank you for your understanding. When I'm free in the future, I'll definitely pay your father a visit in person." Dugu Xian nodded and got up to leave. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of God. He stopped in his tracks and pulled out a small booklet with a blue cover. He handed it to Li Zixuan and said, "Li Zixuan. Xiaofan, this is our Dugu clan's solitary wind sword technique. Take it." Li Zixuan was stunned. "Ha! Isn't this lonely wind sword technique your Dugu family's heirloom sword technique? Why are you giving it to me?" Dugu Xian nodded. "The solitary wind swordsmanship is indeed our family's swordsmanship. Logically speaking, it should not be passed to outsiders. However, you did not hesitate to pass the 9 swords beyond the swordsmanship to me. Without a doubt, the 9 swords beyond the swordsmanship is a better and more exquisite swordsmanship than the solitary wind swordsmanship. The solitary wind swordsmanship is almost equivalent to the introduction to the 9 swords beyond the swordsmanship. The solitary wind swordsmanship is almost equivalent to the introduction to the 9 swords beyond the swordsmanship. After obtaining the 9 swords beyond the swordsmanship, our Dugu family owes you a big favor. Therefore, my father has decided to give the solitary wind swordsmanship to you." When Li Zixuan heard this, his heart palpitated with eagerness, but he still refused. "No. This is too valuable. I can't accept it." Dugu Xian did not take the sword manual back. Instead, he insisted, "You must accept this. Previously, you were able to deduce the 3 sword moves of solitary 9 swords without practicing the foundation of solitary wind swordsmanship. This means that your talent in swordsmanship is far higher than mine. Now that the facts have proven that the solitary wind sword technique is helpful in comprehending the 9 swords of Dugu, Xiaofan, you must try to practice it. Who knows, you might be able to deduce all 9 sword moves of the 9 swords of Dugu." Seeing Li Zixuan's hesitation, Dugu Feiying chimed in, "That's right. Little Xian, this is my father's wish. Quickly accept it. At most, you can wait until you have deduced all the 9 strategies beyond the swords, then share your insights with my big brother." Dugu Xian's expression changed, and he immediately interrupted, "Flying Eagle. Shut up. Exchanging the first 5 moves of the solitary wind swordsmanship for the solitary wind swordsmanship is already a bargain for us. How can we be greedy for other things?" Dugu Feiying smiled embarrassedly. Actually, he was just trying to persuade Li Zixuan to accept the lonely wind swordsmanship. He didn't have any bad intentions. Li Zixuan hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Don't. Rxin, why are you still being so polite with me? Fei Ying is right. How about this? I will accept this solitary wind swordsmanship, and I will definitely not teach it to outsiders. If I can comprehend all the sword moves of the 9 swords of Dugu in the future, I will share them with you." "Absolutely not. This way won't I owe you more and more?" Li Zixuan laughed. It's fine. There's nothing between us brothers that we owe each other." "Rxin, aren't you treating me like an outsider?" Dugu Xine said helplessly. "All right then. It's getting late. We'll take our leave first." Li Zixuan nodded and personally sent the 2 of them out. Before Dugu Feiying left, he said, "Xiao Xian, does your academy teach martial arts? If it does, I'll enroll in it later." "Teach martial arts? Well, it's not like it's impossible." After sending the 2 brothers off, Li Zixuan rubbed his chin and thought to himself, "Who said that the academy can only teach knowledge? Cultivating both literature and martial arts is not bad." Sigh. No. This bunch of kids are already fixed in their bones. It's too troublesome to teach them. This kind of unreliable thought came and went quickly. After a while, Li Zixuan threw it to the back of his mind and turned his attention to the manual of the solitary wind swordsmanship. F***CK. There's a mountain of treasures in the air, but I can't go in to see it. School was about to start soon, and he had to finish the last textbook, chemistry. He had no time to study swordsmanship. After stuffing the manual into the bookshelf, Li Zixuan bitterly became a porter again. A porter of knowledge. Ganlu Hall. Li Er put down his brush and leaned on the couch. After a while, he suddenly asked, "What has Li Zixuan been doing recently? Why haven't I heard anything about him?" Ever since Li Zixuan returned at the beginning of the year, he had been stirring up trouble in Chang'an City. Recently, he had suddenly been quiet for so long that Li Er was not used to it. That was why he asked this question. Zhao Song stepped forward and said, "Your Majesty, Li Xiannan has been in his residence recently. He should be busy with Yanhuang College." However, 7 days ago, Li Xiannan personally went to Yunshan and brought His Highness Prince Wei back to Chang'an from the mountain. After hearing this, Li Er was puzzled and asked, "Qing Ke? How could he bear to come back from there? What is he doing now?" Zhao Song replied, "I don't know. Ever since His Highness Prince Wei returned, he has been in his residence. I don't know what His Highness is busy with. However, there have been many scholars coming in and out of the Prince Wei's residence recently." Li Er said curiously, "Hey, all of them are not coming out?" Zhao Song, "Let Qing Ke enter the palace to see me later. After returning to Chang'an for so long, I haven't seen this child enter the palace to greet his mother. This is outrageous." Zhao Song bowed and said, "Yes." Chapter 594. Prince Wei's Mansion. Literature Hall. There were a dozen or so middle-aged scholars shuttling back and forth among the mountains of books. They were either reading ancient books, discussing with each other in low voices, or flipping through the books while taking notes. The room was filled with a dense aura of books. It had to be said that Li Tai's literature library had a large collection of books. There were at least 10,000 volumes, which was almost equivalent to a small-scale library. And what was Li Tai doing? This little fatty was currently hugging a book, immersed in reading at a table near the window. His expression was sometimes shocked, sometimes intoxicated, as if there was a peerless beauty in the book. Apui, there should be a table full of peerless delicacies, causing him to be deeply immersed, unable to extricate himself. Ahem, to the current Li Tai, beauty was far less attractive than delicacies. "Your Highness." At this moment, a gray-robed scholar walked in from outside. He came to Li Tai's side and called out softly. There was only silence in response. Li Tai still sat there without moving. He didn't even look up. It seemed like he didn't hear him at all. The gray-robed scholar had no choice but to increase his volume and continue calling out, "Your Highness! Your Highness!" However, he muttered in his heart, ever since Prince Wei entered the Imperial College to study, he has never studied so seriously like now. What's wrong with him today? It's really strange. Li Tai finally noticed that someone was calling him. He raised his head and looked at the person. A trace of apology immediately appeared on his face. He stood up and said, "Ahem." This prince obtained a new book and was fascinated by it. "Scholar Xiao, what's the matter?" The gray-robed scholar in front of him was called Xiao Diyan. He was a scholar of the Hongwen Library and was born in an official's family. His father and grandfather were high-ranking officials of the Chen Kingdom during the Southern Dynasty. During the Wuda era, they served as the Eastern Palace's subordinate, the crown prince, and washed his horse. This person belonged to the kind of person who spent his life pursuing the truth of knowledge. He was not interested in fame, fortune, or official struggles. "My ambition is to study, from day to night, without rest. Every time you want to open the 5 classics, you have to tie your belt, wash your hands, and sit still." If history developed according to the normal trajectory, in a few years, Xiao Diyan would become one of the main contributors to Li Tai's Kuai Ji. "Your Highness." His Majesty just sent someone to pass on a message, saying that he wants you to make a trip to the palace. Of course, Xiao Diyan wouldn't get angry with a child like Li Tai. Seeing that Li Tai had returned to his senses, he hurriedly replied, "Oh, I'll go now." Li Tai reluctantly closed the book, tidied his clothes, and left. As for the book, of course, he couldn't carry it around with him. Instead, he left it on the table. The literature hall was his. What was there to worry about if he put his book in there? "What book is this?" "This old man has read all the books in the literature hall. Why have I never seen this book before?" After Li Tai left, Xiao Diyan was about to turn around and busy himself with his own matters. However, he was suddenly attracted by the book on the table that Li Tai had just closed and didn't have a single word on the cover. He stood in front of the table and muttered to himself, "This son pays his respects to father." In the Sweet Dew Hall, the rotund Li Tai walked in with small steps and bowed to Li Er. His appearance looked rather comical. No wonder Li Er had always doted on this son. "Qing Ke is here? Rise." Li Er raised his head when he heard the voice and smiled. Li Tai straightened his body and cupped his hands. "Thank you, father." Li Er smiled, then put down the memorial in his hand that he was reading halfway and asked, "I heard that you haven't been to Yunshan for the past few days, Qing Ke?" Replying to father, "That's indeed the case." "Since that's the case, why are you still in a hurry these past few days? I don't see you entering the palace to pay your respects to me and your mother." Li Er frowned and asked in a deep voice. Previously, after Li Tai went to Yunshan to help build the academy, Empress Zhang's son felt sorry for her son's tiredness from running back and forth every day. Thus, she exempted Li Tai from entering the palace to pay his respects every day. Now that Li Tai had returned from Yunshan for some unknown reason, he still hadn't entered the palace to pay his respects. This made Li Er a little unhappy. He could tolerate his son's lack of aptitude, but he couldn't tolerate them being disloyal and unfilial. Li Tai's fat face turned red. To be honest, he hadn't entered the palace to pay his respects for a long time and had forgotten about this. Of course, this was something that he couldn't say out loud. He had a legitimate reason. This is indeed this son's negligence. This son will go and pay his respects to mother later. This son has been too busy these past few days and has become muddle-headed. I hope father can forgive me. Muddle-headed from being too busy? What are you busy with? Replying to father, it's some studies that teacher has given to this son. Yanhuang College is about to start school. Teacher Li has been compiling textbooks behind closed doors for the past month. From what I heard, this son seems to be planning to open 4 courses for the new students. They are mathematics, physics, chemistry, and geography. About 7 days ago, Mr. Li brought me back from Yunshan Mountain because he wanted me to participate in the compilation of the geography teaching materials. Thus, this son has been collecting ancient books and literature with the scholars in the literature hall for reference. Li Er's face cleared up a little when he heard this. He frowned and pondered for a long time. Then he stood up and asked, "Geography? Isn't he teaching engineering? Why is he teaching geography for no reason? Does this kid really think that he's Zhuge Kongming who knows everything from astronomy to geography?" When Li Tai heard this, he looked slightly excited and said, "Father is wise. Teacher Li really knows geography." This morning, teacher sent the first draft of the geography textbook to this son's residence. This son opened it and was deeply immersed in it. "I couldn't extricate myself. I didn't even eat lunch." latitude and longitude, contour lines, sea level and so on. Teacher put forward some new concepts in the book. It made this son feel as if he opened up a new world. This geography textbook is definitely better than any of the classics in the past. Li Er was slightly moved. No one knew a son better than his father. Li Tai had always been arrogant. A book that could make him praise it so much must be extraordinary. Latitude and longitude, contour lines, sea level? What are all these things? Li Tai cupped his hands and said, Father, this latitude and longitude is a set of data that teacher specified for each place on the map. It's convenient to find the location on the map. Contour lines are curves that distinguish the height of the terrain on the map. The sea level is the average height of the sea. This is used as a reference for the height of the terrain on the ground. Li Er frowned when he heard this. He didn't understand a single word that Li Tai said. Thus he frowned and said, Where is that geography textbook now? I want to see how magical it is. Chapter 595. The geography textbook that Li Arian wanted to read was currently being observed by several scholars. Hiss! The earth under our feet is actually spherical? How is this possible? Li Tai already knew that the earth was spherical, so he wasn't surprised at all when he saw these things. At first, Xiao Diyan didn't suppress his curiosity and quietly opened the book that Li Tai left behind. When he saw the first page, he couldn't help but exclaim. This inexplicable exclamation also attracted the attention of the two scholars beside him. However, Xiao Diyan couldn't care about this at this moment. He had already put all his attention into the book. He wanted to find out the truth. The first chapter of the geography textbook compiled by Li Zixuan talked about the earth and maps. After saying that the earth was spherical, Li Zixuan gave some evidence that could be given under the conditions of this era to prove that the earth was spherical. After Xiao Diyan finished reading, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His head was buzzing. He originally wanted to refute the point of view in this book, but after reading this small chapter, he could no longer refute it. However, he found it hard to accept that the earth was spherical for a moment. Oh my God! The earth under our feet is so big. The Tang Empire only occupies such a small area. There are so many countries in the north, west, and south of the Tang Empire. 70% of the Earth's surface is ocean, and 30% is land? How is this possible? The meridian from the south to the north that passes through the Taiji Palace is called the prime meridian or the 0-degree meridian. From the 0-degree meridian to the east and west, it increases to 180 degrees. From the equator, 0-degree latitude, to the north and south poles, it increases to 90 degrees. It divides the Earth, and each part corresponds to a latitude and longitude. Hiss! Who wrote this book? Who proposed the longitude and latitude? It's too bold. He wants to use the Tang Empire as a reference to divide the world. This idea. This boldness. It's simply amazing. At first, only 2 people were attracted, but when they saw the wonderful parts of the book, the 3 people exclaimed again and again. Finally, all the scholars in the room were attracted. Gradually, as time went by, the people in the room were all shocked by the spirit of pointing at the sky and drawing the earth. No one had ever told them that the earth was round, no one had ever told them how big the earth was, and no one had ever told them how big the earth was, or how many oceans and lands there were, and no one had ever divided the earth by latitude and longitude. Just by reading the first chapter of the book, these grand scholars felt that their worldview had been completely overturned, and they were still in a state of confusion. Scholar Xiao, His Majesty has sent someone here. He said that he wants to help Prince Wei take away the geography textbook that he was reading earlier. Just when everyone was shocked to the point of being speechless, a manservant walked in from outside and cupped his hands at Xiao Diyan. Seeing that an outsider came in to escape from the Tang Empire, to escape from the Tang Empire, escape from the Tang Empire was to the Tang Empire to the Tang Empire to read the book. After all, this book was Li Tai's private book. It was against the rules for them to read it without permission. Xiao Diyan's face turned red. He stood up and looked at the servant and asked, "Geography teaching material? What geography teaching material? Did His Highness say it clearly?" Although the servant felt that the atmosphere in the room was strange, he did not dare to raise any questions. He directly answered, "His Highness said that it was the book that he read earlier." Xiao Diyan suddenly understood. He picked up the book on the table and looked at it. He reluctantly handed it over and said, "Then it's this book. Take it and give it to the person sent by His Majesty." "Yes." The servant took it solemnly and then left. Everyone in the room looked at each other. Xiao Diyan sighed and said, "So this book is called Geography. It's really a peerless book." Another scholar also sighed and said, "Yes. Let's not talk about whether the things in this book are correct or not. The person who can come up with these ideas is definitely a peerless genius. Just this courage and boldness is something that this old man can't compare to." Xiao Diyan nodded in agreement and said, "Brother Xie's words are reasonable. I just don't know who wrote this book. How did it appear in the literature hall out of thin air?" This Brother Xie was Xie Yan. He was also a scholar in Li Tai's literature hall. He was also one of the people who would revise and write GDG in the future. Xie Yan replied, "This book seems to have been sent to His Highness Prince of Wei by someone in the morning. After His Highness Prince of Wei received the book, he has been reading it. He didn't even eat lunch." Xiao Diyan frowned and said, "His Highness said that this book is a geography teaching material. What kind of literature hall would use this kind of teaching material? I have never heard of this before." Xie Yan thought for a while and suddenly shouted in shock, "Yanhuang College! Only a strange existence like Yanhuang College would use such a strange teaching material. Also, His Highness asked us to search for the past few days. It's very likely that it has something to do with this geography teaching material." When Xiao Diyan heard this, he agreed and said, "Brother Xie's analysis is right. If that's the case, then the person who wrote this book can only be pointing to the sky and drawing the earth, dividing the world. This kid is really bold. Not bad, not bad." Cheng Chumo pursed his lips and said nonchalantly, "Isn't it the same whether we go sooner or later? Xiaoxian and I are good brothers. Xiaoxian won't blame me if I go late. This is really a dead pig that isn't afraid of boiling water, thick-skinned, stinking shameless." Cheng Yaojin was so angry that he glared. He picked up the stick next to him and waved it over. "You stinking brat! You don't know how to make progress and you still have a reason? You don't let Laozi study hard and always score last in the exams. You don't let Laozi practice martial arts well. You're already so old and you're still a dabbler in the body tempering stage. How did Laozi give birth to such a disappointing son?" Cheng Chumo fled in all directions while shouting, "Hey, hey, hey! Dad, stop it! Why are you acting crazy so early in the morning? So what if my grades are last? I'm not in the last 5, and I've never been on the roll of shame. So what if I'm in the body tempering stage? A lot of people haven't even succeeded in drawing cheats." To be honest, Cheng Chumo felt wronged. He knew what he was capable of and he also knew that he wasn't outstanding. However, he originally thought that his father would also know. He hadn't been outstanding for so long, so why did his father suddenly explode today? Could it be that he was provoked by something? Humph! You little bastard, you're really shameless? See if Laozi doesn't beat you to death today. When Cheng Yaojin heard his son's shameful words, he, who was already angry, completely exploded. He dodged and easily caught Cheng Chumo who was still trying to escape. Then, he raised the stick and greeted Cheng Chumo's butt. "Ouch! Mother! Save me!" Cheng Chumo's stick hit hard. Cheng Chumo immediately cried out in pain. Ah no, it should be crying for his mother. "Stop!" Sure enough, Madam Cheng didn't let her son down. She came out after being called for a long time. She angrily walked over and snatched the stick from Cheng Yaojin's hand. Then she scolded, "You old thing, why are you acting crazy so early in the morning? It's fine if you're crazy, but why are you venting your anger on ugly cow?" Cheng Yaojin snorted. "I'm educating this ignorant thing." Madam Cheng didn't let it go. "What do you mean ignorant? Did you only know what kind of character your son has today? If you're angry, go to the backyard and move stones. Don't vent your anger on your son. Did you only know what kind of character your son has today? Chung Chumo was so touched that he almost cried. For the first time, he felt that the feeling of being looked down on was so good. Chung Yaojin was hit where it hurt, and he angrily said, "Humph. A loving mother is a loser. Let's not compare Xiaoxian. Look at that kid from the Dugu family. He became a master before he was 30. What about this kid? He only knows how to be lazy and idle all day long." Chung Chumo was stunned. He finally understood why his father went crazy this morning. It was because he saw someone else's outstanding child and was provoked. He chuckled and said, "Ha ha. Dad, so that's why you're angry. That kid, Dugu Xian, only became a master by luck with Xiaoshuan's help. Besides, he has a strong foundation in martial arts. Do you have to compare him to me?" Cheng Yaojin said angrily, "Oh, you still have the nerve to say that? Between you and Dugu Xian, who got to know Xiaoxian first? And in the end, Xiaoxian helped Dugu Xian to break through, and you're still sleeping at home. You don't know how to reflect on yourself." Cheng Chumo was puzzled. What should I reflect on? Reflect on why Xiaoxian helped Dugu Xian to break through and not you. How would I know why? You, Cheng Yaojin really wanted to say, "I'm really F***ed up." However, his wife was beside him, and he could not say that. He could only say angrily, "Isn't it because you're lazy and don't know how to improve yourself that Xiaoxian doesn't want to be with you?" Cheng Chumo pursed his lips and said, "That's not it. Xiaoxian is much lazier than me." Cheng Yaojin was speechless. Chapter 598. Achoo! Achoo! Li Zishuan, who was engrossed in writing in the study, inexplicably sneezed twice. He was already under pressure from a bunch of chemical reactions, and at this moment, he was even more depressed. Damn! Which family's little girl is thinking of me? Sigh. It's also a sin to be too outstanding. As the saying goes, when you sneeze once, someone will scold you. When you sneeze twice, someone will think of you. When you sneeze thrice, someone will think of you. And when you sneeze thrice, someone will think of you. That's why Li Zishuan shamelessly muttered to himself. Heh! Who are you thinking of? Han Yushi pushed open the door at this time and quietly came to Li Zishuan's side. Li Zishuan blushed and quickly said, "Cough, cough. Do you still need to ask?" "Of course, I'm thinking of you." Han Yushi sneered and said, "Glib tongue, it's clearly not like that." Although that was what she said, Han Yushi didn't intend to dig into it seriously. She was mostly joking. Li Zishuan smiled embarrassedly. Suddenly, he caught a glimpse of the cup of bright red juice that Han Yushi brought in. He said in surprise, "Ah, this is iced watermelon juice?" Logically speaking, there were no juicers in the Tang dynasty. Han Yushi smiled gently and said, "Ah, how did you know?" I smelled it." Was there anything more blissful than having a cup of iced watermelon juice in front of him on a hot summer day? Li Zishuan didn't bother to ask Han Yushi how she squeezed the juice at this time. He directly picked up the cup and enjoyed it while answering Han Yushi's question. Now it seemed that although writing books at home was a little tough, it felt good to have a considerate person by his side to take care of him. 6 days later. Haha. I'm finally freaking liberated. Damn it, I didn't expect being a rich second-generation heir to be so tough. On this day, Li Zishuan finally walked out of his western courtyard. His 1-month closed-door training had made the people of Chong and very lonely. Without the big news that he made every now and then, the people of Chong and felt that their lives were less interesting. Fortunately, they still had the Datong daily to pass the time. Hee. Young master, have you come out of seclusion? Xiao He trotted over from a distance and said with a bright smile. That's right. What do you think? I went into seclusion for a month. Xiao He, did you miss me? Li Zishuan squinted his eyes and teased. Cough. Actually, it couldn't be said to be flirting. He had been with the 2 maidservants for so long that they couldn't be more familiar with each other. Rather than flirting, it was more like playing around. Li Zishuan would never joke about this kind of thing with an unfamiliar girl. Speaking of which, during the month of his closed-door training, not only were the people outside unable to see him, but even many people in the mansion rarely saw him. Xiao He, who spent every day in the western courtyard, could only see Li Zishuan's real body when he came out to go to the toilet every day. Hee. No way. Young master, Aren't you afraid that young madam won't let you enter the room at night? Xiaohe wasn't afraid of Li Zishuan. She stuck out her tongue and said mischievously. Li Zishuan was amused by her words. He laughed carelessly and said, "Heh, my Yushi isn't such a person. On the other hand, little girl, when you get married in the future, you might become a fierce shrew." Young master, you. Xiaohe was furious. She put one hand on her waist and pointed at Li Zishuan with the other. She said angrily, "Young master, you're too much. Xiaohe. Xiaohe doesn't want to get married. I'm ignoring you." If the person in front of her wasn't Li Zishuan, with Xiaohe's unruly temperament, she would have already verbally abused him or punched him. It was rare that the little girl could still maintain her last bit of rationality at this time. "Ha. Little girl, you still want to fight with me?" Li Zishuan looked at Xiaohe's back and muttered to himself happily. It seemed pretty good to be able to bicker with such an unruly little girl every day. "Husband, you're really too much. How can a girl like Xiaohe withstand your words?" Han Yushi walked in from outside the courtyard and complained to Li Zishuan slightly. Li Zishuan laughed and said, "Ha. It's fine. This little girl forgets everything after a meal and a nap." Han Yushi was speechless. She looked at Xiaohe's back and then turned to Li Zishuan and said, "By the way, Mother just said that the villagers of the Han family manor and Plum Village have begun to urge us to collect rent. It just so happens that you've finished your work, husband, so I won't participate." Li Zishuan was stunned. Only then did he remember that he was a big landlord. Under normal circumstances, he only needed to eat at home and wait for death. However, since ancient times, when would a villager take the initiative to urge the owner to collect rent? It was really strange. Shaking his head and throwing away the messy thoughts in his mind, Li Zishuan replied, "That's fine. I'll go on a trip." "But wife, how's the harvest on the farm this year?" With his current wealth, of course, he didn't care about the rent. The quality of the annual harvest didn't affect him much, but the impact on the villagers was too great. That was why he asked this question. Han Yushi's face darkened when she heard this. She said softly, "There's little rain this year. I heard from my father that the harvest on the farm wasn't very good. Overall, it will be about 10 to 20% less than last year. The villagers of the Han family manor and Plum Village didn't have much of an impact because you gave them a discount on raising chickens. However, the villagers of the other farms probably didn't have it easy." Of course, the cost of living in a bustling place was naturally incomparable to other places. Li Zishuan also saw that the young scholar in front of him was dressed exquisitely and had a good temperament. He reckoned that his family background was not bad, so he recommended him to Chongren Lane. Now that so many examinees had gathered in Chong'an, those cheap inns were almost full. Only high-end inns could satisfy the needs of this man in front of him. The young scholar asked, "Where is this Chongren Square? Little brother, please enlighten me." Li Zishuan felt his teeth ache. He thought that this scholar's speech was a little troublesome. He pointed to the north and said, "Brother, follow this road to the north. After passing through 4 residential squares, you will see Chongren Lane." The scholar's face lit up. He hurriedly cupped his hands and thanked, "Little brother, thank you for your advice. I am Di Jishuan. If fate allows us to meet again in the future, I will definitely invite you to drink and chat." Di Jishuan? Li Zishuan's heart skipped a beat. In his previous life, when he read Young Di Renjia, there was 4 heroes of capital city. One of them was Di Jishuan, Di Renjia's father. However, he had been here for so long and was still a native of Chong'an. He had never heard of the 4 heroes of capital city. It was obvious that the stories in the novel were all fabricated. However, he did not expect to meet the future divine minister of Tang, Di Renjia's father. He really had the halo of a main character. "Brother Di, you are too polite. I believe that we will meet again in the future. Brother Di, don't you have any relatives in Chong'an? Why do you want to stay in an inn?" Li Zishuan smiled faintly and asked with deep meaning, If he remembered correctly, Di Renjie's grandfather, Di Jishuan's father, should be an official in the imperial court. According to historical records, Di Jishuan's father, Di Xiaoshu, had been the general manager of the army, the general, the left minister, the military envoy of Bian province, the golden-purple Guanglu Daifu, the scattered cavalry officer, and the provincial governor of Feng and Bian province. Later on, he was conferred the title of Lin Yingnan and had a prominent position in the early Tang dynasty. Di Jishuan was Di Xiaoshu's fifth son. He was a man of great talent. Since his father was a high-ranking official in the imperial court and his family was wealthy, Di Jishuan had received a good education from a young age. According to the normal course of history, Di Jishuan would have taken the imperial examination in the 4th year of Zhengguan and become an official. In the same year, he would have given birth to Di Renjie, the divine minister of Tang. At this time, Di Jishuan's face turned red. He cupped his hands and said, "I do have relatives working in Chang'an. However, I don't want to cause any trouble when I come to take the examination of Yanhuang College, so..." It was also because Di Jishuan saw that Li Zixuan was dressed in luxurious clothes and had an extraordinary temperament that he explained that he was definitely not the son of an ordinary family. After all, they were in Chang'an, a city where officials were as numerous as dogs. Although his father was an official, he did not want to make enemies for his father. Li Zixuan chuckled when he heard that and hurriedly waved his hand. "Ha ha! I know. Brother Di, you don't have to say any more. Let's go to Chongren Square." From Di Jishuan's words, he guessed that Di Xiaoshu didn't bring all his family members to Chang'an when he was an official. He also hoped that Di Jishuan would take the imperial examination and become an official. Di Jishuan was young and frivolous. He was attracted by the large number of reports about Yanhuang Academy in the newspaper. However, because of Di Xiaoshu's opinion, he could only secretly come to Chang'an to take the examination. This was a rebellious young man who left the Li family without permission. Di Jishuan breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Ha ha! Then I will take my leave. Thank you very much, little brother." Li Zixuan smiled and cupped his hands in return. He said, "Brother Di, I wish you all the best in the examination and have a good time in Chang'an. If you are free in the next few days, you can go to Yunshan Mountain in the eastern suburbs of Chang'an and take a look at Yanhuang College. Brother Di will not be disappointed." Di Jishuan's eyes flashed. He nodded and said, "I will go and take a look." After that, the two of them cupped their hands and said goodbye. Li Zixuan took Li Anren and continued to rush to Crooked River Square. Looking at the crowded Chang'an, he muttered to himself, "It's the golden autumn of September. Talents from all over the world are gathering. I wonder how many students will pass the examination this time." Chapter 601. According to the statistics of the various branches of the Tang Dynasty Daily, there were a total of 3,800 students who applied for the Yanhuang Academy. Even if they used the 50% reference rate, there would still be more than 1,900 students who came to take the exam. This number was more than the number of examinees who came to Chang'an every year. The imperial exam of the Tang Dynasty was held in January or February every year. Generally, registration would start in November of the previous year. The exam location was at the southern courtyard of the Ministry of Rites of the Shangshu province. The examiner was the assistant minister of the Ministry of Rites. Generally, the number of examinees who came to Chang'an for the exam every year was around 1,000. At its peak, it could reach 2,000 examinees. However, Li Zixuan's academy was able to attract 4,000 examinees. One had to say that his publicity work was really on point. In many people's eyes, Yanhuang College's entrance exam was second only to the imperial exam. After all, the imperial exam had a limited number of examinees. Mingjing could not exceed 100 examinees. Jinshe could not exceed 30 examinees. Yanhuang College didn't seem to have any restrictions as long as one could pass the exam. After entering Yanhuang College, one could use the Yanhuang College's mathematics to participate in the imperial exam. If one failed, one could use engineering to earn money to support his family and become a rich man. Or, one could invent a divine artifact. Like Li Zixuan, one could directly become a baron from a commoner and reach the pinnacle of life. Of course, there were fewer people who took the imperial exam than the Yanhuang College's entrance exam. Another reason was the threshold. The threshold for the imperial exam was obviously much higher than the threshold for Yanhuang College. The examinees who took the imperial exam came from two sources. The examinees who took the imperial exam came from Shengtu and Xianggong. There were many subjects in the imperial exam. According to the examinees' conditions and the content of the exam, they were divided into Xiaocai, Mingjing, Jinshi, Mingfa, Mingjing, etc. Shengtu were the examinees who passed the entrance exam of the Imperial College, Hongwen Institute, Chongwen Institute, and various institutes. Xianggong, on the other hand, was a person who had passed the capital and state examinations. They were also known as high scholars. They had to be recommended by someone. The examinees who came to the capital for the imperial examinations had to find a backer, hoping to be recognized by others. Therefore, it wasn't until the Kaiyuan age that the number of examinees participating in the imperial examination finally broke through the 2000 mark. This number was far less than the number of examinees in the Song dynasty. In the 5th year of Zhenzong Xianping of the Northern Song dynasty, there were more than 44,000 examinees in the imperial capital. In comparison, the threshold for Yanhuang College's entrance exam was much lower. As long as one had a basic understanding of the 4 books and 5 classics, and then delved into new mathematics, it was very likely that one would be admitted. There was no need to go to the top of the school, give gifts, or give red packets, and so on. Naturally, the number of people applying for the exam was much higher. After walking for about half an hour, Li Zixuan finally arrived at Xujiang Square with Li Anren. Haha, you're finally here. How rude of you to make us 2 old bones wait for a junior like you for so long. When they arrived at the Li family's house, Li Gang heard someone knocking on the door and came to open it. When he saw Li Zixuan, he couldn't help but laugh. Li Zixuan hurriedly clasped his hands and apologized. I was delayed by something on the way here, please don't blame me for it. After saying that, he saw 3 men in brown linen clothes following behind Li Gang. One of them was slightly older, estimated to be in his 40s or 50s. His hair was faintly silver, and his face was serious. His skin was slightly dark, and there were many wrinkles at the corners of his eyes. He was tall and gave off a strong impression. However, why did this person look like a laborer and not a teacher? Why did Li Gang invite him over? Could it be that he guessed wrong? The other 2 people were slightly younger, but they were a little thin, and belonged to the kind of people who were only skin and bones. At first glance, it was obvious that they were malnourished and often suffered hardships. However, the aura of these 2 young people was actually at the early stage of qi refining. This really surprised Li Zixuan. Sir, who are these people? Li Zixuan looked at the 3 of them and asked Li Gang. Although these 3 people didn't look like teachers from their appearance, Li Zixuan still had to ask out of politeness and respect. Moreover, he wasn't a person who cared about appearance. For men, as long as they didn't look scary and were capable, he didn't care about whether they were handsome or not. Cough cough, when it came to women, he still paid a little attention to appearance. Haha. Let's talk inside. Li Gang laughed and led them into the front hall. When they entered the room, they felt a trace of coolness. Li Zixuan smiled slightly. This was the ice that Li Gang had asked his subordinates to send to Li Gang's house every day after Li Gang agreed to work at Yanhuang College. It could be considered an exclusive benefit from the college. After they sat down, Li Gang raised his hand and laughed. Haha. Little Xian, let me introduce you. This is the 45th generation of the Mo family, Mr. Mo Huai. These 2 are the younger generation of Mr. Mo's family. They are Mo Zhong and Mo Yun. Brother Mo, this is Li Zixuan that this old man told you about. Don't be fooled by his young age. His ability is not small at all. After Li Gang finished speaking, Li Zixuan's eyes widened in shock. There was a huge wave in his heart. The Mo family, the Mo family's giant, this top school or top organization that originated from the Warring States period, its leader actually looked like this? And sat in front of him? The Mo family's giant. In the legend of Qin, the Mo family's giant, the 6-fingered black warrior, wore a black cloak and held an ink plum that looked like a sword but not an attack. He had black eyebrows without a sharp edge and was all-powerful. Even the 5 elders of the Yinyang school could not take him down. There was also the 3rd generation of the Mo family's giant, the mysterious Yen Dan. What kind of existence was that? Why did the Mo family's giant in front of him look so unsophisticated? Even if he was a low-level version of the 6-fingered black warrior, he would not be so low-level? Also, the Mo family's chivalry was so strong. From the Qin dynasty to the Han dynasty, The various rulers had never stopped suppressing the Mo family. Under such an environment, how could the Mo family survive until the Tang dynasty? Li Zixuan did not read about this in his previous life. His understanding of the Mo family was still limited to the anime of the legend of Qing dynasty. As for the status of the Mo family in the Tang dynasty, he had no idea at all. Greetings to Mr. Mo and the two brothers Mo. With a stomach full of questions, Li Zixuan cupped his hands and greeted the three of them. I'm just a villager in the mountains. I can't accept the courtesy of Mr. Li. Mo Huai's cheeks moved slightly as he said with a solemn expression. There was no trace of a smile on his wrinkled old face. Li Zixuan's mouth twitched. This old man was not someone who was easy to get along with. That's right. He was the giant of the Mo family. How could he become a teacher so easily? Looks like my mission today is not easy. Heh. This is the first collision of modern and ancient scientific knowledge, right? Let's see who's stronger and who's weaker. Li Zixuan thought maliciously in his heart. His principle in life was that if others were not convinced, then he would torture them until they were convinced. With that, he stared at Li Zixuan. Although he knew the answer to this question from the Mahist classics, he only knew how and did not know why. He planned to make things difficult for Li Zixuan later. Li Zixuan widened his eyes. He now suspected that Mo Huai was a transmigrator. He even knew about the image of a small hole. He was going to ascend to the heavens. What? Mr. Li can't answer? Mo Zhong asked happily when he saw this. Li Zixuan was shocked and speechless, but in Mo Zhong's eyes, he could not answer. Li Zixuan came back to his senses and suppressed the shock in his heart. Then he smiled and said, "It's not difficult. There will be an inverted image of a candle flame behind the small hole. As the small hole in the middle moves back and forth, the size of the image will also change. Jizzy, am I right?" As a modern engineering student, although Li Zixuan easily answered Mo Huai's question, he had a stomach full of questions like Mo Huai. This was because the image of a small hole involved the knowledge of geometrical optics. How could the people of the Tang dynasty know about it? However, he did not know that Mo Huai only saw this knowledge from the Mahist classics. The real person who proposed the image of a small hole was Mozi. Not only did Mozi research in mechanics, but he also had deep attainments in geometrical optics. Chapter 605. More than 1,000 years ago, Moz had conducted an experiment on the imaging of small holes. He clearly pointed out that light traveled in a straight line, and the image formed by an object passing through a small hole was an inverted image. This was because when light passed through an object and then passed through a small hole, due to the straight line travel of light, the upper part of the object would be reflected below, and the lower part of the object would be reflected above. He also discussed the relationship between the size of the image, the object's tilt, and the distance of the light source. He pointed out that if an object was tilted or far, the shadow would be long and thin. If it was reflected light, the shadow would be formed between the object and the light source. In addition, Moz also conducted a systematic research on flat mirrors, concave mirrors, convex mirrors, and so on, and came up with a series of basic principles of geometric optics. He pointed out that flat mirrors formed images of the same size and symmetrical distance, but left and right were reversed. If two or more flat mirrors were to face each other and shine light, there would be repeated reflections, forming countless images. The image formed by a concave mirror was a positive image within the middle, a large image if far from the middle, a small image if near the middle, and a large image if near the middle. Outside the middle, an inverted image would be formed, a large image if near the middle, and a small image if far from the middle. A convex mirror only formed a positive image, a large image if near the middle, and a small image if far away. The middle here was the center of the spherical mirror. Although Moz had not been able to distinguish the difference between the center of the sphere and the focal point, and had confused the center of the sphere and the focal point together. His conclusion was basically consistent with the imaging principles of modern spherical mirrors. In the history of optics, MOZ was the first scientist to conduct systematic research on geometric optics. It was not an exaggeration to say that MOZ had laid the foundation of geometric optics, at least in China. As Joseph Needham said in the physics volume of The History of Science and Technology in China, MOZ's research on optics was earlier than what we know of Greece, and not even India. At this moment, when MOY heard Li Zixuan's answer, he was not as surprised as the previous 2 times. Instead, he continued to ask, "Why is there an image of an inverted object? If you don't want to explain, you can treat this as my 4th question." Li Zixuan waved his hand and smiled. No need. Since you want to know why, then I'll explain it to you. It's not considered one of the 5 questions. His desire to rope MOY in was growing stronger and stronger. Therefore, he had changed the way he addressed himself. Although he was confident that he would win this bet, he had to give MOY some face and make him accept his loss wholeheartedly. This way, MOY would be willing to teach his students wholeheartedly in the future. This is not called cowardice, but the demeanor of a winner. Li Gang, on the other hand, frowned slightly. He secretly thought that Li Zixuan was a little careless. However, MOY was also his old friend. He couldn't possibly jump out to stop him at this time, right? Li Zixuan asked Xiaofan Ren to bring a brush and ink, then gestured for MOY to come over. He drew the light path diagram of the small hole imaging system and said slowly, "Juzi, please look. This is a candle. The flame of the candle can be seen as composed of many small luminous dots. Each luminous dot emits light in all directions. There will always be a small beam of light that goes straight through the small hole, forming a small luminous spot behind the small hole. Therefore, each luminous dot on the candle flame will form a corresponding luminous spot on the white paper. All the luminous spots on the white paper will form the image of the candle flame on the white paper." After listening to Li Zixuan's explanation, MOY suddenly understood. Now he finally knew how and why. However, at the same time, he looked at Li Zixuan very strangely, as if he was looking at a monster. At this moment, MOY was very curious about Li Zixuan's background. First of all, to be able to become a martial arts master at the age of 14 or 15 was already a special case in the world. However, Li Zixuan actually had such deep attainments in these very obscure fields. He was a dual cultivator of both literature and martial arts, and he could reach an existence that ordinary people could not reach in every aspect. MOY could not imagine what kind of family, what kind of master, could teach such a monster. How is it? I wonder if this kid is right? Li Zixuan's scalp tingled under MOY's gaze, so he could not help but ask. MOY nodded silently and did not say a word. Li Zixuan said, "Then Juzi, please continue with the 4th question." When MOY heard that, he shifted his gaze away from Li Zixuan and sighed deeply. Then, he bowed to Li Zixuan and cupped his hands. "There's no need for that. This old man admits defeat. From now on, this old man's old bones will be at your disposal. I don't ask for any remuneration, and I will do whatever you want." "Uncle! No! Uncle! Don't!" Mo Zhong and Mo Yun were shocked when they saw this, and they shouted one after another. As the Juzi of the Mo family, MOY's knowledge and martial arts were all the role models that they, who adhered to the Mo school, worshipped and chased after since they were young. Now, the godlike man in their eyes actually bowed to a young man of 14 or 15 years old. How could they tolerate this? Although Li Zixuan was indeed very powerful, Mo Zhong and Mo Yun still could not accept this reality. "Shut up! As the Juzi of the Mo family, how can I go back on my words? Mo Zhong, Mo Yun, the 2 of you can leave first. In the future, this old man will choose the next Juzi of the Mo family." When MOY heard that, he hurriedly reprimanded them loudly. Then he cupped his hands to Li Zixuan and said, "Lord Li, please give this old man a month's time. After this old man returns to the Mo family's encampment and chooses the next Juzi, I will return to Chong and to teach the students wholeheartedly." Now, MOY's gentle pleading was no longer as high-spirited as he was at the beginning. Instead, he looked more like a hero at the end of his road. Li Gang looked at him and could not bear to see this. After all, this was an old friend he had known for many years. Thus he said, "Brother Mo, you don't have to do this. Your position as a Juzi does not conflict with your identity as an instructor at Yanhuang College. Xiao Xian is not an unreasonable person. He will not restrict your freedom. You can manage the Mo family's affairs while teaching at Yanhuang College. Besides, the Mo family has declined to this day. How many affairs do you still need to manage? The corner of Li Zishuan's mouth curled up. He secretly thought that his opportunity had come. He hurriedly interjected, Mr. Li is right. Juzi, if you go to Yanhuang College to teach, this young man will definitely not restrict your freedom. Furthermore, this young man will definitely not shortchange your salary by a single cent. Also, Juzi, you can move the Mo family's encampment to Chang'an. At that time, this young man will be in charge of settling all the followers of the Mo family. If there are any followers of the Mo family who are proficient in mechanics, optics, or machinery like you, this young man is also willing to hire them to Yanhuang College. As for the salary of the teachers at the college, I'm sure you already know about it, so this young man will not repeat it. What do you think? Chapter 606. It had to be said that Li Zishuan's ambition was really big. He wanted to take in all the capable people in the Mo family under his command. Of course, he couldn't be blamed for this. Mo Huai's abilities, especially in astronomy, physics and optics, made him the perfect candidate for Li Zishuan, who had just finished building Yanhuang College. With Mo Huai's addition, his workload at Yanhuang College would be greatly reduced. After Li Zishuan said that, Mo Zhong and Mo Yun's eyes flashed, and a glimmer of hope appeared on their faces. To put it nicely, they were the core disciples of the Mo family, but their work was no different from that of farmers. They also had to do farming on a regular basis. Otherwise, what would they eat? What would they drink? They would only return to the Mo family when they were not farming to accept the organization's training or other arrangements. They were all capable, but because of their identity as followers of the school of Mo, they had to stay in a desolate place and do hard work. Originally, it wouldn't have been a big deal if they continued like this, but after seeing the prosperity of Chang'an City with Mo Huai, their hearts wavered. The suffering of the followers of the school of Mo was something that the disciples of other sects could not understand. Now that Li Zishuan had said this, they could not help but let their imagination run wild. Why couldn't they rely on their own abilities to let their families live a good life? However, although that was what they thought, they wouldn't easily say it out loud. After years of being a follower of the school of Mo, the organization's discipline was deeply engraved in their hearts. Mo Huai frowned. He straightened his body and stared at Li Zishuan seriously. This old man appreciates Lord Li's good intentions. However, as a follower of the school of Mo, I have to wear fur as my clothes and sassafras as my clothes. I have to work day and night, and I have to suffer myself to the extreme. How can I be a follower of the school of Mo if I only covet worldly pleasures? This old man has already violated the school of Mo's laws by agreeing to become an instructor at Yanhuang College. In the future, I will no longer be qualified to lead the followers of the school of Mo in the world and carry forward the school of Mo. Therefore, this old man must resign from this position. As for the other followers of the school of Mo, I advise you not to waste your efforts. As soon as Mo Huai finished speaking, Mo Zhong and Mo Yun's faces instantly became 70% ashamed and 30% regretful. They lowered their heads and didn't say a word. Li Gang frowned and said, "Younger brother Mo, you're muddle-headed. The Mo clan had hundreds of thousands of disciples during the peak of the pre-Qin dynasty. But now, there are less than 100 disciples. Have you not thought about the reason for this? Do you think that the decline of the school of Mo was only caused by the suppression of the various emperors?" Mo Huai said indignantly, "Isn't that so? If it wasn't for the martial emperor dismissing the 100 schools of thought and respecting only Confucianism, how could the Maoist school have fallen to such a state?" When Li Gang heard this, he said rather painfully, "Ridiculous. I didn't expect Brother Mo to still be unable to see the true reason behind the decline of the Mo family. Fine. This old man will enlighten you." The onlooker sees more clearly than the person involved. Although this old man studies Confucianism, this old man will not help the Confucian school or your school of thought today. This old man will analyze with you as an outsider. You said that the decline of the Confucian school of thought was due to the suppression of the various emperors. However, ever since the martial emperor dismissed the 100 schools of thought and respected only Confucianism, why did the school of thought, which was known as a prominent school of thought in the world, declined so quickly while the school of thought and the school of thought could survive until now in the cracks of Confucianism? Have you ever thought about the reason behind this? Li Gang's words directly revealed the fundamental reason for the decline of the school of thought. Mo Huai could not help but be stunned, and his face turned pale. Li Zixuan listened seriously at the side. It was obvious that Li Gang knew more about these old matters than him. It was not bad to take this opportunity to learn. Li Gang did not wait for Mo Huai to reply and continued. In my opinion, the reason why the school of thought fell to its current state is because your school of thought's requirements for your disciples are too harsh. Why can sage Confucius not be tired of eating and not be tired of eating? But you school of thought can only wear fur as clothes, wear silk as clothes, work day and night without rest, and suffer to the extreme? Perhaps this is because you have your own beliefs. But who says that people with beliefs can't rely on their own hands to live a good life? Could it be that living in the abyss of suffering every day makes you school of thought superior to the rest of the world? It had to be said that Li Gang's words could be said to hit the nail on the head. Li Zixuan could not help but clap and cheer when he heard it. What he said made too much sense. Among the 100 schools of thought in the pre-Qin dynasty, the ones with the greatest influence were naturally the 4 schools of Confucianism, Moism, Taoism, and legalism. However, after the unification of the Qin and Han dynasties, their fates began to diverge. Confucianism became the orthodox and mainstream of Chinese culture. Legalism, due to its special nature, dominated the politics of the imperial court for 2,000 years. Taoism, on the other hand, recruited believers and occupied civil society, becoming the spiritual home of the secluded people. Only the school of Mo, after a moment of glory, disappeared into the long river of history, whether as a school of thought or as an organization. Why did the school of thought end up so tragically? Was the school of thought not brilliant enough? Definitely not. The school of thought was filled with great humanitarianism and scientific spirit. Even from the perspective of a modern person in the 21st century, it was still so dazzling. In addition to the external reason of dismissing the 100 schools of thought and respecting only Confucianism, there was also an internal reason for the demise of the school of thought. If a person wanted to be a loyal believer of the school of thought, he must have a strong spirit of sacrifice and dedication. He must have a heart of universal love for everyone, and he could not talk about personal feelings. Therefore, Zhuangzi the world criticized the school of thought. His life is hard, his death is shallow, his Tao is great. He makes people worry, makes people sad, and his actions are difficult. I'm afraid that he can't be a saint and have the heart to rebel against the world. Although the school of thought alone, what can he do to the world? Apart from the world, he is also far away from the king. In contrast, being a disciple of Taoism was much better. The goal of Taoism was to become an immortal. This was a beautiful wish that could attract a large number of believers. Moreover, for Taoism, especially for Jingyi, which had a long history, there were not many rules about abstinence. Sexual intercourse was even a secret technique of the immortals. As a religion that was born, although Buddhism required abstinence, the monks could enjoy spiritual satisfaction while abstinence. Thus, they saw all suffering as a raft that led to happiness. It was because of this chicken soup for the soul that devout Buddhist disciples could ignore the physical hardship and pursue the metaphysical Zen. However, the school of thought's love with impartiality, non-aggression, respect for the virtuous, respect for the common, non-life, non-pleasure, frugality, and frugality in funerals. These ideas were not enough to be the foundation of the school of thought's belief. If it was not based on a firm belief, that bitter and abstinent life would not attract new blood to join the school of thought. The number of followers of the school of thought in the world would only decrease. This was the internal reason for the decline of the school of thought. He definitely isn't the reincarnation of the Mo family's divine ancestor. Hearing Li Gang's words, Mo Huai finally wavered a little. His face was filled with disappointment as he muttered, "Is it really not? Li Zixuan couldn't help but feel a little sympathy for this old man's disappointed look. He thought for a moment and said, Juzi, I know what you're thinking. You're hoping that there really is the reincarnation of the Mo family's divine ancestor, and then lead the Mo family to become strong again. But it's better to rely on yourself than on others. The spread of the Mo school still depends on you and the current followers of the Mo family. Mo Huai was stunned. Li Zixuan's words stabbed him in the heart. He did have such thoughts before. After a while, he cupped his hands and bowed to Li Zixuan. Thank you for your advice, Lord Li Zixuan. I've made up my mind. I'll issue an order for all followers of the Mo family to come to Chang'an and help Lord Zhu impart knowledge and enlighten the people. When Mo Zhong and Mo Yun heard Mo Huai's words, they couldn't help but look at each other. It seemed like they were happy with this result. Li Zixuan was overjoyed. He said excitedly, That's great, that's great. Juzi, welcome to Yanhuang College. When the rest of the followers of the Mo family arrive in Chang'an, just let me know and I'll take care of them. Chapter 610. Little Xian, although the Mo family's Juzi has agreed to lead the rest of the Mo family into Yanhuang College, you mustn't reveal their identities to others. Moreover, many of these followers of the school of Mo are skilled in martial arts. You must pay attention to management and don't let these people go out and cause trouble. You must know that there are many people watching you now. After Mo Huai, Mo Zhong, and Mo Yun left with their mission, Li Gang looked at Li Zixuan and said earnestly. Li Zixuan was stunned. He didn't understand, so he asked, Sir, why is that? Do you know why the emperors of the past have been suppressing the Mo family ever since the Qin dynasty unified the world? Li Gang clasped his hands behind his back and sighed deeply. Then, he turned around and stared into Li Zixuan's eyes with a burning gaze. Li Zixuan answered matter-of-factly, Isn't it because Confucianism can better govern the people? That's why the other schools of thought can only slowly die out. This question was something that any modern person could answer, because countless historians had analyzed this problem. For the feudal rulers, Confucianism, which centered on the benevolence of hierarchy, was more suited to the needs of the ancient emperors to implement feudal autocracy. Therefore, when Confucianism became popular, other schools of thought would naturally die out. You brat! Li Gang glared and pointed at Li Zixuan. He was old and experienced, so of course he knew that Li Zixuan was speaking the truth. However, how could the truth be said so casually? He scolded jokingly, then said, You can talk nonsense in front of me, but don't say these words outside. Li Zixuan knew that he had misspoken and hurriedly agreed. Li Gang shook his head and continued. Actually, other than Confucianism, there's another important reason why the emperors of the past suppressed the Mo family. Under the background of great unification, a strong organization with strict internal discipline would inevitably make the imperial court extremely wary. Although the Mo family may only be hot-blooded and have no political ambitions, the emperors of the past were not afraid of greedy villains, but sages with the ability to mobilize people. For example, Xiao He. When Emperor Gaozu of Han stabilized the country, Xiao He's right-hand man advised him to buy more land and dirty himself. Only then would he feel at ease. Xiao He listened to the advice and forced the commoners to buy their houses and land at a low price. As expected, Emperor Gaozu was very happy. If Prime Minister Xiao wanted to benefit the world like a Mozi, there might be another headless ghost in the Weiyang Palace. Therefore, after the first emperor, he immediately sent the secret shadow guards to kill the Mo family. In the Han dynasty, the imperial court suppressed the Mo family several times and almost wiped out the entire Mo family. Mr. Li, you won't blame this general for being rude, right? Li Zishuan had just finished speaking when a white-robed man walked in. He stared at Li Zishuan and said half-jokingly. It was Li Junxian. Just from appearance alone, Li Junxian had a tall and straight figure and an awe-inspiring demeanor. His sharp eyebrows and handsome face made him look even more heroic. TSK. It's actually a pretty boy. No wonder there were rumors about him and Wu Mainyong in the future. Li Zishuan muttered to himself. Then, he stepped forward and clasped his hands with a smile. General Li, what are you saying? You have the divine mandate on you. Please come in and have some tea. While Li Zishuan was sizing up Li Zishuan, Li Junxian was also sizing up Li Zishuan. He had met Li Zishuan before. When Li Zishuan had challenged Mount Bei Meng in order to save Han Yushi, Li Er had sent him to investigate the situation. Although the situation had already been decided by the time he found Li Zishuan, he had still met Li Zishuan before. But today was his first time meeting Li Zishuan face to face. As he looked at this youth who was about the same height as him but still somewhat childish, he couldn't help but sigh. If not for Li Zishuan, he and Dugu Xian would have been considered outstanding talents of the great Tang's younger generation. But there were no ifs in reality. Although he held an important position at such a young age and was even a second-rank county duke, he was still a little dim compared to Li Zishuan. The other party wasn't even 15 yet, but he was already able to climb to such a high position. Who knew what he would be like when he was in his 20s or 30s? Besides, how could a martial arts grandmaster who wasn't even 15 years old compare to him? This general is only here to pass on an imperial decree. I won't impose on you. County Duke Li, listen to the decree. Li Zishuan snapped out of his thoughts and sternly said to Li Zishuan. When Li Zishuan heard that it was a verbal decree from Li Er and not an official imperial decree, he immediately dismissed the idea of having someone set up the incense table. He stood to the side and bent his body slightly, pretending to listen attentively. His Majesty wants this general to inform you that Yanhuang College can accept people from the Mahist sect, but you have to know the limits. If something happens, you will have to bear the consequences. In the end, Li Junxian had to polish Li Er's words a little. Otherwise, he would have been too embarrassed to say it out loud. Even so, this imperial decree was still very straightforward. However, Li Zishuan really liked this kind of straightforward imperial decree. After hearing this, he hurriedly clasped his hands and said, "This subject receives the decree. Thank you for your grace." Li Zishuan's gratitude was sincere. Humble love. Humble self. Many people felt that this kind of humble love was not worth cherishing, but Li Zishuan did not think so. In love, if someone loved more, naturally, there would be someone who loved less. It couldn't be equal. People who loved more would give more, and naturally, they would be hurt more. This wasn't because she was cheap. It was because she loved him and didn't want to lose him. After understanding this, Li Zishuan wouldn't not cherish this relationship. He would only feel that this woman really made people feel sorry for her. And the 6th rank title that Li Er gave to Han Yushi today could be said to be timely reign. In this era, the title of a noble was very rare. If a 6th rank noble was placed in a place, even the county magistrate would have to greet them with the courtesy of an official. Li Er nodded. Qin Qiong and the others quickly cupped their fists and said, "Your Majesty is wise." Li Er laughed and said, "That's enough. Let's not talk about this anymore. Today, Xu Bao's body has recovered. I am really happy in my heart. Jijia, pharmacist, Jinda, Jingda, since you guys are here, don't leave. Today, we are here to celebrate with wine. We won't go back until we are drunk." Speaking of drinking, Chang Yaojin suddenly became excited. He didn't care about the etiquette of a monarch and minister. He patted his arm and laughed loudly. "Okay. We originally planned to eat wine at Second Brother's place at noon. It's good that your Majesty is here. Speaking of which, We brothers haven't eaten at the same table with your majesty for a year, right? Haha. Yes, yes, yes. Today, Xiaofan is here. This kid's culinary skills are excellent. He can cook a few dishes for us to eat with wine. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Chapter 6:17. When it came to cooking, many people would subconsciously think of the phrase, "A gentleman should stay away from the kitchen." It was clearly inappropriate for Li Zixuan, the founding baron of the country, to personally cook. However, the elders in the backyard clearly didn't think so. Cheng Yaojin, Qin Qiong, Niu Jinda, and Yuqi Jingda had always treated Li Zixuan as their own junior. If something happened to Li Zixuan, the four of them would definitely be the first to act. As for Li Zixuan, because of Han Tianhu's Han family, he was considered relatives of Li Zixuan. Needless to say, Li Zixuan himself also wanted to try the dishes personally cooked by Li Zixuan. After all, in the entire Tang dynasty, who didn't know that Li Zixuan was the best at eating? Therefore, Li Zixuan was unquestionably sent to cook for these elders and big shots to go with the wine. As the emperor, if he wanted to eat lunch at the Qin residence, Li Zixuan obviously wouldn't be the only one busy. When Madame Qin, who was chatting with Han Yushi in the backyard, heard that Li Zixuan was going to eat at the Qin residence, she quickly ordered the servants to prepare the ingredients. Then, she personally went to the kitchen. Han Yushi followed behind her. Xiaoxian? Why are you here? Why aren't you in the front room with His Majesty? They all say that a gentleman should stay away from the kitchen. Why are you a man in the kitchen? Go out and let Auntie. Madame Qin originally planned to personally cook lunch. After all, it was for the emperor. However, she couldn't be careless. If the servants didn't pay attention or had any evil intentions and something happened to Li Zixuan while he was eating at the Qin residence, then the hundreds of people in the Qin residence would be finished. After entering the kitchen, Madame Qin saw Li Zixuan cutting the pork and couldn't help but reprimand him. Han Yushi, who was following behind, also couldn't help but open her mouth in shock when she saw this scene. When Li Zixuan heard this, he smiled as he cut the pork. What gentleman should stay away from the kitchen? That was just a bunch of hypocrites who pretended to be righteous and hypocritical to cover up their hypocrisy. Today, Uncle Qin has just recovered from a serious illness, and this little one's cooking skills are just right. I'll conveniently make a few side dishes for Uncle Qin, the elders, and His Majesty to show my sincerity. What's wrong with that? Mencius had a famous saying, "A gentleman is like a beast. Seeing it alive, he cannot bear to see it dead. Hearing its voice, he cannot bear to eat its flesh. Therefore, a gentleman stays away from the kitchen." In the traditional etiquette system, it was simply established as a code of conduct. A gentleman should stay away from the kitchen. If there is blood and qi, he should not be humiliated. Li Zixuan felt that the person who said this was simply asking for trouble.